Great. It's 9 a.m. sharp, so if we want to go ahead and get started, Bob, Dr. Emery, you can take it away while people continue to join in.
Sure. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Emery, and welcome to the EHS Academy. I forgot what number this is, but this class was created over 25 years ago. Is it 7? We're 27. Okay. Yeah, because
25.
we're at 25 now.
We
Okay.
were the big 2-5.
When this class was first conceived, the classroom, we normally do it in live, which is right upstairs from World Safety Headquarters, which is this office, is right in the shadow of the football stadium. And we've hosted several Super Bowls there. So we thought it was a good idea to start numbering the EHS academies with Roman numerals, which seemed like a great idea 25 years ago. But we're closing in on number 30. And there's been great debates on how we label EHS Academy number 30, because it would be XXX, and we're not sure that's going to go over very well with the university and others. So I don't know, it might be the biggest attendance we've ever had. But this particular edition is very well attended, and really excited to meet all of you virtually, and hope to be establishing a long-term relationship there. So very quickly, the reason we created this class is that we learned that everyone that does safety in a university environment, myself included, was not trained on how universities work first. All of us came from different backgrounds, kind of fell into the profession. And then we're asked to do many different things because of resource constraints and the unique nature of universities. So we decided to create this boot camp, which starts off with, first, let's talk about how universities work and some of the subtleties there. And then going from there, talk about some of the really important skill sets that some people would refer to as the soft skills. I would argue are the necessary skills that we will cover as we go along. Normally, this class is in person. It's 40 hours long. I look forward to the day when we get people back in person. But in the meantime, we'll do the best we can in this virtual format. And my colleagues, Michelle and Scott, will talk a little bit about how we're going to do that. We certainly welcome your interactions. We've learned over the past 2 years to really encourage people to use the chat feature, along with some of the other features that will be described here in a second. So again, welcome, and I'll pass it over to Scott here. I guess you're going to describe the format very quickly, and then Michelle will talk about the Canvas system.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Patlovich, and I'm partners in crime with Safety Bob Emery here to deliver this EHS Academy course. As mentioned, we normally do this in person over the course of a week. And I've always found that the greatest benefit of the EHS Academy is twofold. It's the information that we provide during the course, but equivalently, it's the people that you meet within the course that do health and safety, not exclusively, but primarily our attendees are from academic settings. And so getting to meet people in different settings who do what you do every day, it sure is nice to add to your Rolodex. And so one of my challenges to you all as we go through this virtual offering of the course is to make sure that you keep a tally of your colleagues within the course so that you can reach out to them in the future for any questions, concerns, to compare notes or get a sanity check as appropriate. So please, despite the virtual format, make sure that you understand who's here, where people are from, and what it is that they do each and every day so you can reach out in the future. That's a critically important part of this course, I've always found. So let me tell you what we're going to do through this virtual offering of the EHS Academy, the 25th version of it. We thought long and hard about getting everyone together in person again. We felt during the planning stages of this course that it was too premature to make that decision to do the in-person version, given the significant Omicron surge that just occurred. Obviously, we're out of the weeds, at least here in Texas, and I believe in most parts of the country at this point in time with a significant lull, but nonetheless, this virtual format makes most sense. We have offered this course virtually once before, where we did all of what Bob just referred to as the soft sciences portion and the hard sciences portion of the course. That was a lot to do virtually. Even though we spread it over a couple of weeks, it was still a lot for our course participants. Admittedly, it was a lot for us as well to administrate and deliver all of that content in this virtual format. So we decided to offer this time around a two-part series for the course. And so you guys are now enrolled in part one of our virtual EHS Academy. What that means is that we're going to focus in part one on our soft sciences topics. These are necessary topics, as Safety Bob just referred. We're going to make them interesting. We're going to bring this all home to you as to why these topics are important from a program management standpoint. But during this first part, which is going to be delivered today and in a few weeks on April 4th, or I should say next week on April 4th, we will deliver the soft science topics in this virtual format. Part two will be delivered later, so we'll unveil the process and the dates and everything for that in the near future. But today we're going to cover a couple of topics, which include a quick set of introductions. I want you to know who everybody is here, so we'll go around the horn and do some introductions here in a moment. Safety Bob is going to do what we call understanding how universities work to kick things off. A really important presentation to get everything started. We'll take a short break, and then we'll come back with what we call the 50 questions, and then we'll review some tactics that we use for obtaining feedback through a client satisfaction approach that we've used here at the Health Science Center and elsewhere as well. And we'll share some tips and tricks there. Next week, we'll come back and we have topics in the compelling display of EHS-related measures and metrics. We'll look at a public health logic model and how that fits into the EHS measures and metrics that really matter. And then we'll actually unveil and share with you our FY21 departmental annual report that we assemble and share with our stakeholders on our campus to serve as an example of how you might collect and communicate about your data in your respective institutions. And then we'll complete next week's session with a short review of professional development within the EHS fields. So that's the plan for this first part of the EHS Academy virtual offering over the next 2 weeks. I'm going to kick this over to Michelle now to talk about some of the do's and don'ts of our virtual offering here. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thanks, Scott. Give me just a second to share my screen. All right, so just a few housekeeping tips for best practices. For WebEx, we know that there's connection issues if you're connected to a lot of other applications. So if you're using a VPN connection and experiencing issues, you may want to log off that and just connect directly, not remotely. You can always change your audio if you're experiencing any audio issues through this time. It will be the button at the bottom of your taskbar in WebEx with the 3 dots, and just you can select change audio and then follow whatever process you'd like. We ask that you keep your microphones muted throughout this webinar. Use the chat box to communicate, and then the moderator, whoever that is at that time, will further facilitate that discussion and call on you to unmute as needed. Again, if you're experiencing any issues, you can close your video, close other applications, and this event is being recorded. I'm going to very quickly go through the Canvas system as well for those of you that have not logged in. This is where all of our resources and presentations will be housed. So please log into Canvas. Let me put this in student view so you can see, we can go through what you'll see. So just read through the welcome page, get familiar with that and the course structure and format. You can go to the orientation page to learn more about Bob and Scott and me if you so choose. If you have any issues with Canvas throughout this process, please email me. My email is here. And then go to the participant discussion board that I just opened, because I found it is very important that when copying over a course, you changed the year from 21 to 22. So my apologies for those who have tried to start that discussion and have not been successful. We want to know how you tell your story, what your most significant metric is that you measure, and what your biggest challenge is. So by participating in this and just communicating with each other, we can start that discussion. And then when you click over to modules, you'll see, of course, the pre-course module. Please watch the 5-minute safety video. We are now in week 1, and then you'll see a few more things pop up between this afternoon and tomorrow with the resources that will be shared today, and the same thing for week 2, excuse me, along with evaluations for each week and the end of course module that will pop up as we get closer to the end of each. Please complete those modules. Complete the evaluations because that is how you're going to get your CEU course attendance certificates. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if you have any questions throughout this process about Canvas or how things work, please do email me. All right,
Thank you very
Scott.
much. Yep, thank you very much, Michelle. We're going to start now with doing some quick introductions. We want to bring a human side to this virtual course. And so Bob and I will introduce ourselves real quickly and tell you a little bit about ourselves. And then we're going to go around the horn here, and I would invite everyone to come on camera so we can see your face if you're willing to do so and you have the capability to do so. And quickly introduce yourself. We want to know your name. We want to know your institution. And we want to know your job title or responsibility within your EHS program. And I'll help to moderate by going around the horn here. But I'll start with myself. I help to run the day-to-day operations of our environmental health and safety program here at the University of Texas Health Science Center. We just got our 33rd FTE position approved and funded because we are growing, in particular in our clinical areas. We were able to get some additional headcount recently approved. So the day-to-day operations of our EHS program is my responsibility. We have programmatic areas that address the risk profile across our teaching, research, and clinical care areas. So we've got programs in chemical safety, biological safety, radiation safety. We manage all of the hazardous wastes that are generated on our campus in what we call our environmental protection program. We do all the fire and life safety on our campus within our occupational safety and fire protection program. Our newest and fastest growing arm of the department, as I just referred to, is our hospital and clinic safety program. And then what makes us a little bit different or unique from other college and university health and safety programs is under our kingdom, our umbrella that we all report up to Safety Bob. We also have risk management and insurance, emergency management, and employee health, or some would call occupational health, under our umbrella. So I'll kick it over to you, Safety Bob.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my name's Bob Emery. Everybody around here knows me as Safety Bob. I've been here at the university for 29 years. I didn't realize that. And prior to that, it was 10 years with the University of North Carolina system. My title here is a bit unusual that I'm over these 3 legs that Scott just described. We've got the traditional environmental health and safety, risk management and insurance, and then employee health. And over time, that's turned out to be a really nice relationship between those 3 groups, and we'll cover some of those issues while we go through
spoons. Here, so one's for the cake, quotation marks, and another one's for the ice cream.
Sound like someone is unmuted there. But by the way, when Scott was mentioning, we have quite a number of folks. We have almost up to 50 folks. When we do these introductions, we'll keep them brief, but sure would like to see if you could use the chat feature to include what you'd like to get out of the class. What is your big need, or what is your big concern? That would be really, really helpful because we can catalog those and make sure we adjust the presentations as we go. So look forward to chatting with all of you as we go along, and I'll turn it back to Scott.
All right, so for our introductions, here we go. Your name, your institution, and your job position or responsibility within your safety program. In no particular order, I'm going down my list here. We're going to wake the folks up over in California. We've got a big contingent from the Cal State system. So why don't we start with the folks out in California? You want to start and introduce yourselves? I've got Stephen first on my list.
Hello, my name is Stephen Melgar. I work at Cal State LA. My job title is the Radiation Safety Officer. I'm an RSO. Anything else that you wanted to hear from me?
No, that's perfect. Nice to meet you, Stephen, and nice to see you on camera there. Thank you very much. Next, we got Fernando.
Hi, good morning. I am the safety coordinator at Cal State LA. Coming from the private sector now to the school system, just trying to get some more information on how my position affects and how I can be, an asset to the school on the safety side.
Great, welcome. We got Michael DeSalvio. I'm going to move on to Tamara. How about April? All right, I got David Ortega. I think some of our Californians are still asleep. We woke you guys up early for the course. Michael Morales. And Mitchell Reed.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mitchell Reed. I'm from California State University, Monterey Bay. Been in this position, will be 9 years as of next month. Basically been in higher ed for most of my career with this. I was originally non-tenure track faculty at Suffolk University in Boston, and basically got involunteered into doing health and safety. And that's how I kind of got into this, and actually like the safety side more than the prepping and managing intro to biolabs.
You work in a nice setting out there in Monterey, so fantastic. Welcome. I got Ricardo. Okay, that's at least on my list, the last of our California folks. Any other folks from California that I may have overlooked? Okay, we're shifting to the East Coast, and we're going to welcome our folks from the Duke University Health System. So I've got Rashida.
Good morning. My name is Rashida Lawrence. I do work for Duke University Health System as a laboratory safety and health specialist. I've been in this position for almost 17 years, but I still feel like I need to learn more. So that's why I'm here.
Welcome, Rashida. And next I've got Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor Metcalf. I'm also a safety and health specialist with Rashida for our lab safety division. I'm rather new to the academia side of environmental health and safety, but I have been working in this field for almost a decade.
Fantastic. Well, my 7 connections to Kevin Bacon with you guys is that I used to help support the Duke NUS, which is National University of Singapore, the medical school over in Singapore that you guys helped to operate. So it's a neat facility they have. Anybody else from Duke that I did not call on? Okay. Next on the list, we've got Sierra Perez, UT Austin.
Hello, good morning. I am Sierra Perez. I actually just started like 4 months ago. Just graduated from A&M actually. I am an equipment safety specialist, and I focus on ventilation equipment on campus, i.e. like fume hoods, downdraft tables, stuff like that.
Welcome. Shifting around to different parts of the state of Texas at this point, I got Ivan Flores from El Paso. No, okay. Moving here to Houston now. We've got some colleagues from across the street at MD Anderson Cancer Center. So Cynthia.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cynthia Gamaro. I'm a safety specialist with the Joint Commission Emergency Management Team, and I've been at MD Anderson. It'll be my 10th year this year.
Welcome, Cynthia. And your colleague, Oluyemi.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Oluyemi Odina. I am a safety specialist for the Houston area locations. I am new to the institution, about 4 months.
Welcome. Staying with MD Anderson, we got Juan next.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Juan Garcia. I joined MD Anderson 4 months ago, and I'm the new safety technician in the EH&S department.
Great. Welcome. Pete.
Morning, everybody. My name is Pete Hernandez. I'm a radiation safety specialist at MD Anderson. I've been here a year, oil and gas before that, and NRC before that. So just always in EH&S in some form or fashion.
All right. For you newer folks, you're just across the street, but I guess due to COVID, we haven't had a happy hour together. So we're going to have to plan something in the near future.
Yes, we do.
Welcome.
Yes.
Scott, also at MD Anderson. About Dennis.
Good morning, everybody. Dennis Winters, MD Anderson, EH&S with EPP, safety technician. Just started in January. Prior to this, I was with the U.S. Navy with safety for 20 years. I'm glad to meet everybody.
Great. So your boss, Mr. Precluda, who was one of our employees over here many years ago. Good guy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about Randy Mendez, Sanjack?
Yes, good morning. I'm at San Jacinto College on the northeast side of Houston. I'm the safety specialist here. I've been here for about 2 years, but I've been doing EHS for about 2 years before that. But here, we're a small team, so handling all the inspections, evaluations, training all throughout the campus for EHS.
Welcome, Randy. Skipping back over to the West Coast here, Missy from Sonoma.
Yes, hi, good morning. Missy Burdett, Sonoma State University. By trade, I have been in emergency management, risk management for the past 15 years, and EH&S has recently come under my umbrella. So I'm just here to take in as much as I can so I can support the staff as best I can.
Very good. Welcome. Back to Texas here. So Terry over at UT Austin. How about Roshni at UT Dallas? How about Anna, UT Tyler, UT Health Science Center Tyler? Well, I can see you right in front of me on my screen. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good to see you, Scott. Safety Bob. Good to see both of you. My name's Leo Grant. I am University of Texas Permian Basin Director of Environmental Health and Safety. I am here for a sanity check and to make sure that I am not completely off base.
I was coming back from spring break last week, driving through Central Texas and saw a lot of fires. Did you guys get any fires over there?
Nope.
Okay.
Although we look like it's going to be a fire season for us, we're down at about 5% humidity today.
Wow. Wow.
So if you see me drinking water, it's because you have a different problem.
Welcome, Lyle.
Thank you.
We've got a huge contingency here from Colorado as well. So how about Adam?
Yeah, hi, my name is Adam Stroup. I work at the University of Colorado since 2012. I'm an industrial hygienist. I do indoor air quality investigations. I manage some asbestos and lead projects. Before I was at CU, I was at Yosemite National Park in their EH&S department for about 3 years. So,
oh, fantastic. Not a bad work setting there.
Not bad at all.
How about David, also from Colorado?
Hello, my name's David Cohn. I work with at Adam, actually, at the Environmental Health and Safety team at CU Boulder. I've been in the industry about 15 years. I've been at CU about 5 years, and I specialize in the asbestos lead indoor air quality section.
Very good. Welcome. How about Holly?
Hi, I'm Holly Gatesmere, also a CU Boulder, and I am the Director for Research, Safety, and Support. And prior to that, I was at the University of Idaho for 18 years, primarily biosafety and industrial hygiene.
Welcome, Holly. Marjorie. How about Timothy, also from Colorado?
Yeah, I'm Tim Lockhart from CU Boulder. I've been here about 15 years now, just shy, and I'm an industrial hygienist and now transitioning to the Director of Occupational Health and Safety for the Boulder campus.
Tim, I can see behind you through your window. You have a much better view than most safety professionals I've ever met.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Beth. That's all I've got on the list from Colorado. Anybody other folks from Colorado that we overlooked? Okay. We're shifting back to the Houston area. So Keita, University of Houston.
I'm Keita Malone in Texas. I have been at the University of Houston for the last 2 years as a safety specialist, specifically in biosafety. I've been doing biosafety and occupational health specifically for the past 4 years. And before that, I was in oil and gas.
Welcome, Keita.
Thank you.
And we've got Ben.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Yang. I'm a chemical safety specialist from University of Houston. I joined the EH&S team from last September, and before that, I was a chemistry teaching lab manager for like 5-6 years. Nice to meet everybody here.
Nice to meet you guys too, and be sure to tell Lisa Benford hello for us.
You do.
And your colleague at the downtown campus, Adam.
Good morning. My name is Adam Valdez. I'm here at University of Houston downtown. My background in the past is oil and gas. I am new to the academic side.
All right, we're going to shift north of Texas up to Oklahoma. We got Christopher.
Yeah, my name is Chris Snyder with the University of Oklahoma, the EH&S director, new to the position and new to academia, so ready to learn about it all.
Excellent. Welcome. Back down to Texas now, Andrea at UT Austin. All right, how about Justin at UT Austin?
Hi, I'm Justin Sibley. At UT Austin, I'm in the hazardous waste group. I'm a safety specialist.
All right, welcome. Lori, UT Dallas.
Dallas, I'm the radiation safety officer there.
And a couple of colleagues, Michael. And how about Shandani?
Hi, this is Jamini with UT Dallas. I'm the environmental program manager here, and I'm pretty new to the higher education. So I'm glad to see everybody and ready to learn more.
All right, Fazia, our colleague here at the Health Science Center.
Hi, everybody. I'm Fazia Steinkohler, work at UT Health Science Center with UT physicians. I'm in infection prevention, and we work closely with the safety team, so I'm here to learn more.
God, it looked like Andrea Acosta, I think she's at UT Austin, was having trouble with her audio, but I think it's working now. She put in the chat, so maybe we can circle back. Is Andrea, are you on, able to speak?
I am now. Can y'all hear me?
There you go. Okay, yeah, got it. Welcome.
Sorry, it's been quite a whirlwind for me these last couple of weeks. So I'll let y'all know. My name is Andrea Acosta. I work at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm with Environmental Health and Safety. I'm new to the academia side. I've been in training for the last 2 weeks, first taking a week-long class on industrial hygiene, and the second taking a mold consulting course, which I just finished. And I've got my background my specialty is going to be IAQ, mold, and anything else that gets thrown my way, I'm going to catch it and run with it. And my experience and background, I come from the field of the fire service with 20 plus years in emergency services and management.
Welcome, Andrea. We're going to shift south of Houston now down to Galveston. We've got a big contingent from UTMB. So go ahead, Geraldine. All right, how about Corey?
Hey, good morning. So my name is Corey Wilheit. I'm a fire and life safety technician at UTMB Galveston. I was a project manager and system designer at a fire alarm company for 10 years before joining the University of Texas Medical Branch. And I've currently been here for 5 years. And I specialize in all aspects of fire and life safety compliance, which includes fire extinguishers, fire alarm systems, special suppression systems, building inspections, and joint commission readiness.
Fantastic. And you have a couple of colleagues from the Health Science Center of Houston that you work very closely with, Tim Reed, Mario Soares, et cetera.
I do, Dr. Suarez and Dr. Reed. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Going down the UTMB list here, Jeremy.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Davis. I'm the safety technician at UTMB Galveston, mostly focusing on fit testing currently.
Welcome. How about Samantha?
Hello, I'm Samantha Thompson. I'm with the University of Medical Branch, UTMB as well. And I, along with Jeremy, is a safety technician, and we primarily focus on fit testing.
Great. Well, welcome. Clinton.
Yes, my name is Clint Straightwell. I'm at UTMB Galveston. I work with Corey Wilheit and Tim Reed, Mario Suarez, and those guys. My background, I was a senior operations manager with Amazon as well as DHL, so I'm new to all this, but I'm here ready to learn.
Fantastic. Welcome. How about shifting back to UT Austin? We've got Christy.
I'm we have a fairly medical school with 6 years old. I do radiation safety and R survey and magnetic resonance and laser safety as well. And then some stuff on the campus for athletics, all radiation related.
We're going down to the Valley of Texas now. UT Rio Grande Valley. I got Sergio.
Hello, I'm Sergio Mireles with the UTRGV. I'm a safety specialist under the Environmental Protection Program.
All right, welcome. Dr. Costello, we know well. He used to be one of our folks here many years ago as well.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got at least one other colleague here as well. Epifanio?
Yes, I think he has trouble with his mic, so he's typing in on the chat.
Oh, okay, perfect. Epi. I love it. Anybody else from UT Rio Grande Valley that I overlooked? Okay, and we've got somebody here from Incarnate Word as well. Victoria?
Hi, I'm Victoria Mccoy. I'm the admin for our risk and safety department. I'm new to the field and learning how to support my team.
Fantastic. I got one more from UTMB that I may have overlooked. Kendall. Anybody else from UTMB that I may have overlooked? And I don't have the updated list in front of me, but I understand there's a few here participating from the University of Vermont. Anybody from Vermont want to introduce themselves?
Scott, I have that list if you want me to go through it.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
So Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Halsey. I've been a lab safety coordinator for about 10 years now. Just seeing what's new.
Thank you. Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Kachukian, and I work at the University of Vermont supporting radiation safety and occupational health.
Welcome. Christopher.
Oh, there's two of us, so I'll go.
I'm Chris Walker from the University of Vermont. I'm a safety program coordinator, dealing a lot with IAQ issues, as well as lockout, tagout, job hazard analysis, electrical safety, and such.
Thank you. Now, Christopher, is that Panko? Going once, going twice. Barry.
Hi, good morning. Barry C. Mays. I'm the University Fire Marshal from the University of Vermont. Just passed my first year anniversary here. Prior to that, retired out of the fire service. A little over 22 years with the city of Burlington, same city. Fire Marshal of the city for the last 8 years before that. So good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And Dorian.
Hi, I'm Dorian Evans. I'm the Environmental Compliance Manager here at the University of Vermont. So glad to be joining everybody and seeing some familiar faces as well.
Dorian, we miss you. How is your new work setting treating you?
It's pretty awesome. It's spring and it's snowing, so that's a little bit to get used to. But
a little bit different than Dallas, is it?
Yep, just a bit. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Is there anybody else that we missed that hasn't introduced themselves yet?
I think we also have a registrant from University of Massachusetts Amherst, Glinda, if she's here with us this morning. Nope, okay. I can quickly introduce my team, Scott, if that's okay. So I'm Michelle Mcdaniel. I'm the Continuing Education Director here at the Southwest Center for Occupational Environmental Health at UT School of Public Health and the Texas Medical Center. And I work very closely with Dr. Bob and Scott to facilitate trainings like these. And on my team here with us is Sylvia Santiago, our Continuing Education Coordinator, bringing us this wonderful webinar this morning, and then Leah Merrill, who's our data analyst, and she participates in our courses as to help me with evaluations and data management. So we're glad you're all here this morning, and thanks for joining us. Okay, Scott.
I was just going to say thank you guys for taking the time to do those introductions. It is an impressive group of folks with lots of different backgrounds, expertise, and experience, and really pleased to have you guys all here together today and next week. And I really look forward to Bob's introductory presentation here. This is a famous presentation that I wish I had on day one of my start within the academic EHS setting. And so you guys are going to enjoy this one. Safety Bob, take it away.
Okay, great. So yeah, it was good to hear the variety of folks. We have folks that have been in the university environment for a long time, and we've got some folks that are new to the university environment. I will tell you that I've given this talk many, many times, and we always ask at the end, did you learn something new about universities that you didn't know before? And even the longest term employees in the safety departments for universities acknowledge that, yeah, there was some stuff I didn't know. And I'll tell you the reason that is I should have mentioned this earlier during the introductions that 80% of my time is safety guy, but 20% is my faculty appointment at the School of Public Health. So I've had this kind of unique perspective as being a student in a university, a grad student as well, but also working as a service member in the safety departments, then moving all the way up to executive leadership, but then also advancing in the academic setting, and then becoming a tuition payer for my daughter. So I've kind of been around, and now a donor. So I've been around the circle, every perspective you can see from a university environment. And so, and layer on top of that, we'll talk about this later, but Scott and I and some other colleagues have been asked to go out and do collegial peer reviews of safety programs literally around the world. And I emphasize the term collegial, that it's not an inspection, but it's just a go in and peer to peer to look at things and say, hey, that looks really good. You might want to think about this, that sort of thing. But it's really been interesting to see how different universities address managing the perils that are present on their campus. And so you learn as much as you share when you go and do these peer reviews. So one of the things I've learned in my career is that no one sat down at the beginning of all this and said, here's how universities work. And having slugged my way through the faculty side, I really developed a real appreciation for this. And so that's why we start this course off with, everybody take a deep breath, and let's go back to square one and talk about why universities exist in the first place and what our role is there. And then I'll ask you at the end, I'm very curious, and I want you to use the chat feature on this. Did you learn something new about universities that you didn't know or didn't appreciate? And so that's what we're going to do here. So let me share the screen. And let's see, here we go. And first of all, I'll start off with universities are very, if you haven't figured it out already, they're very interesting places. And one of my roles in the university is to be kind of a spokesperson. I have to do a lot of media interviews and do other sorts of activities. One of the things that public affairs loves to do now is that they really like this social media stuff and postings. And since I'm known around campus as Safety Bob, they issued me a selfie stick, and they wanted me to go around campus. And when there's a gathering of students, let's say at the dental school, then they'll get their selfie picture taken with Safety Bob. Well, so anyhow, so I get this thing. I said, well, give it to me, and we're getting ready to go on vacation. And let me try it out. I've never used this thing before. I'm not really technologically adept, but I did want to share with you the world's most awkward selfie, because I took this thing on vacation and actually took this photo, which I didn't realize I was actually dressed like the lighthouse. And then my wife, when she was reviewing the pictures on the cell phone, she made me delete these. She doesn't know I saved this one, by the way. But she also forcefully removed my selfie stick. So it was all taken away, and it never made it to social media or the university. So anyhow, okay, to get us going here, these service programs, of which we are, EH&S is one of many service programs that a university maintains. They play an important role within universities, but we have found over the past 25 years is that staff understanding and appreciation of how universities work is often lacking. And we can prove this in spades from the previous EHS academies when we go around, when we're in a live format, and we ask people, where are you from? What do you want to be when you grow up? And two things we ask are very interesting here is, one is, what the previous experience in the university setting is, but also how big is your campus? And we'll get to that in a little bit, but it found fascinating that we've actually conducted a series of research projects, and some of you may be familiar with this, but people, they can't even answer the basic question of what do universities do, and they can't answer the question, how big is your university? And that's really, really important. So we'll get to those things in a little bit. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just that no one ever sat down and said, these are the answers to these key questions. And obviously, the better as a profession that we can understand our clients, the better services that we can provide, because we are a service organization. Let's see. Okay, so if some of you have been through training with the Covey approach to management, that the fifth habit of the 7 habits of highly successful individuals is seek to understand and then to be understood. So that's what we're going to do in this first presentation, is understand this environment in which we all operate. So we'll talk about the 3 main university constituencies and the relative importance of each. This is really, really important. And then we'll focus in on how someone becomes a faculty member, what they do and how they're measured. That's very important. Talk about some of the bases for some underlying critiques that faculty have of EH&S and other aspects of the university. And then wrap up with some basic things you can do right now to really change your relationship within the university, regardless of your role within EH&S. First, let's start off, no one ever told me this before, but why is it the universities are special in the first place? Of course, we just went through March Madness here, and people can see how alumni and other supporters get so razzed up about this. It's really interesting. But American universities, especially research universities, are considered to be a national treasure. Just like we have someone in this class that was at Yosemite National Park. That is considered to be a national treasure. The vast majority of Nobel Prize winners were educated or teach at one. We attract students in the United States of America from all over the globe. Of the best universities in the world, 75% are in the United States, and few sectors of the U.S. economy can make a similar claim of achievement. So universities really are special places, and we should acknowledge that. So, there are days you come to work, you're probably dreading it, but you take a step back and realize how unique the university environment is. It's a point of pride, I would argue. And of course, there's athletics. You can't throw that out, right? We're not going to talk about athletics in this class, but it does play a major role, and it's a point of pride as well for the certainly schools that have very successful programs. Okay, so regardless of what institution you're at, all universities, colleges and universities have three constituencies: students, faculty, and staff. It's pretty straightforward. But what's really interesting, if we were to ask people to vote who's most important, about 2/3 of you would get it wrong. And by that, I mean, I'm going to actually prove my assertion in a second here, because what we want to do is answer the question, which group is necessary and sufficient to achieve the missions of the institution? So I'll jump ahead and tell you the answer is the most important constituency on campus is the faculty. But now I'm going to, some of you would have said, oh, well, it's the students because we have to take care of the students. That is true. The students are the main customers. We want to take care of them. But without the faculty, we wouldn't be able to achieve the missions of the institution. So this next slide is the most important slide in this whole presentation. This is what universities do. All universities do teaching, research, and service. And you, working in EH&S, should be able to answer the question each day, what did you do to further the missions of teaching, research, and service at your institution? And I would argue that mindset is very, very important for a service-oriented safety program to be able to answer that question, okay? So let's go back to the assertion that faculty are most important. Well, let's talk about the core. One of the core missions is teaching. And in order to have teaching at a university, we have to have faculty and we have to have students. Now, administration is there to help. That's very important, all those support services. But at the end of the day, if you don't have faculty, you don't have any teaching going on. Similarly, with research, in order to do research, you have faculty that are guiding the research, and then you have students, and then assistants to the research enterprise. And again, administration's useful, but not necessary and sufficient. And then we'll get into a little bit about the service role of universities. Now, in our case, the big service role is clinical service, but in others, large land grant institutions, I think we have representatives from Texas A&M, one comes to mind, there's many others, where they do agricultural extension services. The faculty may serve as reviewers on panels. They may serve as peer reviewers for scientific literature and the like. So in other words, all you heard over and over again through teaching, research, and service is the faculty. The faculty are most important. And you would be stunned how many health and safety programs we've seen across the country that do not respect and handle services accordingly for the faculty. So I now realize that the faculty, of which I'm one card-carrying member, sometimes can drive the service folks crazy. I get it, but you have to kind of understand that these are people up on a pedestal that need to be managed appropriately. Let me throw out an interesting statistic for you, and I wish we were in a live class on this. I want you to reflect on what percent of the American population age 18 years and above possesses a bachelor's degree. Just think about that for a second. And my hunch is no one's going to get this right, but I just looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the number's about 20%. 20% of the American population age 18 years and above possesses a bachelor's degree. And the percent that possesses a master's degree, I think it was 6%, if I remember correctly. And then the percent that possesses a terminal degree, so like a MD, PhD, something like that, it's 1.5%. So we're dealing with the elite of society here, whether we like it or not, and we just need to acknowledge that and make sure we conduct our operations accordingly, because if we can keep the faculty happy and safe, obviously, we're going to be better off, and the rest of the things will flow beyond that. So let's take a look at where the funds come from to support this important work of teaching, research, and service. And this data that I'm going to show you here is from a group called NACUBO. Now, I suspect many of you on this thing have never heard of NACUBO. It's the National Association of College and University Business Officers. So it's where our big bosses get together. They're kind of, NACUBO is the business organization akin to SHEMA for health and safety. And this is actually a dated graph, but I kept it on purpose. This is actually a graph from the NACUBO website that shows the breakdown of funding for universities. But I kept this segment for a reason, and I want you to see the different sectors there. The blue percentage, which is the percentage of the overall distribution for running a public institution, the blue section is declining over time. Notice that's state appropriations. So that's how much money the state allocates to run a respective institution. But you can see it represents about 30%. The next big red chunk is sales and services. And most people don't realize, but universities sell a lot of things. Well, actually, they rent it, I suppose, but they sell parking, they sell food service, they sell dorms, they sell t-shirts, that sort of thing. And that's a pretty big chunk. As a matter of fact, it's almost equal to the chunk of the state appropriations back in at least 2001. Then we've got tuition and fees, that light blue section. And the average student doesn't realize that their contribution, or the parents of those students, only goes a small way to running the institution. The next segment, federal contracts and grants. Again, you ask the average faculty member, they think the entire institution is on their back. And supported, but in fact, that only represents about 10% of the operating budget. And then I really want to draw your attention to the yellow, and this is the reason I kept this graph, is because you'll notice the yellow portion is growing. And what that is showing or capturing is how universities were shifting to the notion of tech transfer, or the patents and trademarks and copyrights. And this is really important for health and safety people to understand, is that we are obsessed over chemical inventories, as an example. And we go into a laboratory and are demanding for these very specific chemical inventories. Yet, as a young faculty member, or as an older faculty member, are you willing to give away the recipe for Coca-Cola, right? And so if we acknowledge that tension point, we can say, you know what, you don't have to tell me the ingredients, or you don't have to tell me the recipe for Coke. I just need to have the ingredients here so that we can have this chemical inventory. So just that slight subtlety in appreciation of the challenges that the faculty face, because their career rests on the development of this new drug, or rests on this development of a new polymer, or whatever it may be, that may also be subjected to patents and trademarks and that sort of thing. So we have to be respectful of that. And by the way, there's a companion graph. These are updated on the NACUBO website, but again, I grabbed this for a reason. But there's also a similar companion graph for private institutions as well. Okay, so what is it that EH&S wants from faculty? We'd like for them to complete the safety training and get their staff trained, read, understand, and comply with the rules, maintain inventories, fill out forms, and actually send them back, work safely, report events, clean up their messes, dispose of waste properly, and serve as a model for others. Those all sound really good, but the remainder of this presentation will talk about why this is such a challenge for faculty, the most important constituency on campus, why some of this is a challenge, and how we need to consider modifying our activities accordingly so that these things can be achieved. But in order to do that, first we have to step back and say, how does somebody become a faculty member? So if you're going to become a member of the 1.5% of the adult population, you've had to develop a keen interest and aptitude in some area. I started out as a health physicist, so I developed a keen interest in radiation safety. As my wife would assert, it's to the exclusion of my ability to match clothes, to put them on, and other sorts of things. So I guess that's kind of, maybe there's only so much room in the brain and you can do certain things, but you can't do others. I'm not sure. But anyhow, eventually you would complete a terminal degree, which is a buzz term used in academia for someone who has a PhD, MD, that sort of thing. And then in many cases, after they complete that terminal degree, they do a postdoctoral fellowship. And one of the things you want to do is, for your respective institution, just look up and see what postdoctoral fellows get paid, because it's typically quite a meager salary, but you are learning more and you're queuing yourself up for an academic career. And so this postdoctoral fellow is thinking about what they're going to do when they finally get unchained. And so they're going to start searching for jobs. And one place they'll look is something called the Chronicle of Higher Education. That is a paper or journal that is something akin to the Wall Street Journal for higher education. It's very interesting because it has job postings for university presidents and provosts and business officers. But interestingly, there's safety jobs in there as well. So they might find a position at some university and they would send their CV. You no longer send a resume, you send a CV. And then that person goes and interviews at the university. They have a search committee and they get up and talk about their current research and they talk about different things. And then typically they're taken to dinner. And that's when the department chair or someone asks them, okay, tell us what you can do for us here. And the person says, oh, well, that's great. You know, those labs you showed me up there on the 3rd floor? Well, if we go in and knock down those walls and I can put my laser on this one side and I can do this animal research on the other side, you know, and I think I can bring in several $1 million of DARPA money. And so now the deal is set. But I promise you during that conversation, there was nothing about what about the asbestos abatement? What about the sprinkler retrofit? What about the floor tiles? On and on and on and on. So that's one of the things we need to be cognizant of as recruitment is going on. We want safety to be at the table at one point or another to at least understand what are these challenges going to be to bring someone in. Then the person's hired. Then they sign a contract for like 5 to 7 years, especially if they're tenure track. And imagine if you were a safety person and you were brought in and say, okay, you're hired, sign this contract, in 5 years, we'll evaluate how you're doing. And it's either up or out. So it's a challenging environment in which to operate. So faculty positions come in 2 main flavors. There's tenure track and non-tenure track. I think a lot of people have heard the terms, but they don't know exactly where that came from. Why in the world would you give somebody a job for life? But the idea is actually rooted in ancient history where the learned individuals would sit around and debate things, but they were held to the dogma of the day. In other words, imagine folks sitting around saying the earth is flat, and finally someone says, no, according to my research, I think it's round, that they might be dragged out and stoned to death because of the heresy of bringing up such a thought. So over time, the notion was that once one proves themselves in the academic environment, that they would be afforded tenure. And tenure really means that we place value in what it is you have to say. And it establishes security. Now, your tenure, you're seeing erode away in the university environment. So there's usually a finite number of tenure track positions, and non-tenure track positions, which I am on, by the way, can be easily added or deleted as compared to the tenure positions. Now, there's a reason I'm telling you the story about tenure here in a second. We'll get to that. Now, faculty positions come in a pecking order. At the lower end is someone who's an adjunct faculty or an instructor, all the way up to the big 3, which is assistant professor, associate professor, and full professor. Those are big titles there. And so what we want to know at the end of the day as someone who's in safety is we put that information together. I want to know, who am I dealing with? Am I dealing with Nemo or am I dealing with Jaws? And so we have a non-tenure track assistant professor who's calling and complaining about whatever. Okay, got it. We'll come up and take care of it. But I promise you, you get the call from the tenured full professor. That one moves up on the list pretty quick because that person has the university president's phone number on speed dial, and they don't shy away from calling and complaining. And I want to pause here for a second because I had the fortune of going to dinner with one of our former presidents. And it was really interesting to hear the insights of, from their perspective. And I kind of made the comment to Dr. Lowe. I said, I hated it when you would get a call, somebody complaining about some safety thing, and then it had to come to me, and then we'd go take care of it. And he said, Emery, you don't understand. That's what I get paid to do. Some of these tenured professors feel it's their God-given right to call and complain. But what I valued was being able to hand it off to someone who could bring it in for a landing without causing World War III. And he said, that's something you were very good at. And so that's why it's really important for all of us in this profession to understand who is it we're dealing with. They're all our customers. We want to make sure everybody's kept safe, but understand if you got conflicting priorities here, take care of those professor and the tenured professors and those sort of folks. Make sure, because if they're kept happy, it can have a very positive ripple effect throughout the rest of the organization. If they're not happy, they will make sure everybody knows it. So each university usually maintains a a central repository of the faculty and their rank and their status. And so that's what I'd make sure within your department that people know who is it we're dealing with. So just like you and I are measured doing safety stuff, how is it the faculty are measured? Well, gosh darn it, they're measured by teaching, research, and service. And by the way, you're getting to see, it used to be that tenured faculty weren't reviewed anymore. Now you're beginning to see post-tenure review. So this is even more important. So they're measured by how many classes they taught, how many guest lectures, and get this, student evaluations. You can imagine the faculty love being evaluated by the students. And I remember I was teaching a class over at School of Public Health, and a kid sent me a note and said, Dr. Emery, did we do anything important in class today? Would you have ever thought in a million years to send something like that? So I sent a note back and said, well, if you'd shown up, you would have known. So anyhow, teaching's one aspect. Research, that would be measured by funded grants, not applications, by the way. Scholarly and peer-reviewed publications, abstracts, and that sort of thing. And these are very, very important. And then the service piece, where you're serving on editorial boards, committees, advisory panels, asked to provide testimony and the like. I will go back to committees here for a second because safety programs really thrive on the reliance of service from faculty that are on committees. And safety committees are really important because they get information about issues from across the campus. But one of the things I find fascinating when we do these peer reviews is oftentimes these committees are largely populated by staff members or administrators, which it's important to have that representation, but there's not as many faculty on there. So it's important to make sure that you have faculty input and to remind the faculty that they can get their tick marks for doing institutional service by serving on these committees. You just want to make sure that the committees are efficiently run and that, in our case, all our safety committees, whether it's radiation safety, chemical safety, biosafety, they meet for an hour or less each month, and all the information is queued up for them. So it's pretty well organized, and it's not a burden for them when they join in and provide this institutional service. So if we look at kind of the generic process for someone to become a faculty member, it's a whole lot of school, and then they do their dissertation in defense, and then perhaps this postdoctoral training. Then they land that faculty position, they sign a contract, and then off they go for teaching, research, and service. The institution probably allocates some startup money. The startup package for someone here comes into the medical school as a junior faculty member is $1 million. That's the salary plus monies to get the lab set up and to do some other things. And then there's going to be some preliminary results from whatever it is you're working on. I'm going to describe the research process here in a second in a different way that perhaps you've not seen before. But remember, inherent to research is failure. And then at some point you say, aha, I'm onto something here. Now we got to find who will pay for us to do it. So you got to find out who does that, who funds that kind of work. What's the business plan? What's the science? What will it cost? All the necessary review and approvals. Is it going to use radioactive materials? Is it going to use animals? Is it going to involve human subjects? And then there'll be this initial rejection, because on a good day, for some of the most highest powered research institutions in the country, the success rate is 1 in 3 or 1 in 4. So it's very frustrating. And so then that means you just have to reapply or adjust your strategy. And don't forget, you got to do teaching, you got to do service. So you can see it's a grueling experience, and people often ask me, why are some of these faculty so grumpy? And it's like, well, it's a tough slog here. So, okay. And then finally, hooray, we got notification of the award. By the way, this particular class was spurred 25 years ago by a grant award from NIEHS. But unfortunately, it wasn't exactly what I asked for. And the federal fiscal year is different from the state fiscal year. And then we got to submit periodic progress reports and eventual results. You can't bank those funds, so you wind up spending a bunch before the end of the cycle. This is where picric acid comes from and other sorts. When you go in some of these labs and all this stuff is piled up, it's because the grant was running out and they were going to use those monies. They weren't going to send them back because they knew there was a dry spell coming up. Then we're going to write up whatever our findings are and submit for publication and critical review. And then one kind of reflects and says, okay, can we renew this grant? Do we continue it? Or are we on track for promotion and tenure or a career change? So you can see that the clock is ticking for these folks when they come in, and it's a lot of pressure to make sure that you are achieving balance in all three areas of teaching, research, and service. That's many junior faculty don't quite get that. No. Okay, so why in the world would someone want to be a faculty member? Well, there's some rewards in teaching when you go in and actually the light bulb comes on and then people go off to do good deeds. That's really great. We're very proud of some of the folks we've had come through the Bob Emery College of Nuclear Knowledge, as it's referred to here. Some of the directors that we have out there, like Rich Costello, Mike Charlton, Bruce Brown. I'm kind of missing a bunch of them, but we've been kind of the AAA farm team, so to speak, for a lot of the EH&S programs. There's excitement and rewards with discovery. When you discover something that no one else has, it's kind of cool. There's intellectual stimulation. We do work with NASA, and there's folks down there that are really, really smart. And I just wonder, could they actually operate in any other setting? They are doing really great work, but they have to be intellectually stimulated, and it's impressive to see what they do. There's elevated status by being associated with the university, and there's also professional achievement. I would say that, you know, you can bundle all that down into one word, which is ego. But I don't mean all that in a bad way. What I mean is that we're dealing with the elite of society, and we have to treat them accordingly. And we should keep that in mind as we design our systems and do the things that we do. So I want to pause here because I added a couple of slides here about the scientific method, because it's fascinating to me that a faculty member undergoes this, where there's a question, whatever it may be. And the first thing they're supposed to do is some background research to know what is currently known, and then to frame up a hypothesis and then design an experiment, typically with an independent variable and a dependent variable. And then they're going to have to apply for funding to conduct the experiment, collect the data and analyze it, and then draw some conclusions, and then submit for critical review. And there's going to be some key questions. Is the method sound? Are the effects of bias addressed? Is it statistically significant? Are alleged correlations proved? Can the outcomes be replicated? And then it gets published for others to read and critique and replicate. The reason I bring this up is because in this current environment where we have people where it sounds like science rather than going through the entire scientific process, we have people jumping from what's a question to publishing it online and asserting it as so, rather than going through this whole process, which I would argue is necessary. I think many people would argue that it's necessary to go through this process in order to make sure we have reliable information developed from scientific research. So just we have to be aware of that. Also, it's another item I stumbled upon was this really interesting hierarchy of research to policy making. So it starts off with what's suspect, and the reference is down at the bottom there, by the way, where some people are out there and they're noticing maybe certain things are happening. Hey, you know, something's weird. Let's take nanoparticles, for example. We're noticing some issue, maybe a health effect. And then the next thing is, that's suspect. So maybe let's do some little pilot studies here and start to collect some data. And then it goes up to perhaps a more formalized process. But what I really want to draw your attention to is under the heading of what works, and the notion of systematic review or meta-analyses of several quality studies. So in other words, it's not just one study that identified this issue, it's several studies that replicated what was described, and then lo and behold, even in different settings, the same result proves to be so, and now all of a sudden we're getting to something that works rather than something that was merely suspect. And by the way, I'll get to that because we went through this exact process on the notion of square footage and the predictor of size for EH&S, and we'll talk about that a lot throughout this course. Okay, now peer review is an interesting concept here because faculty are hardwired to do critical review. In other words, their work, whatever it is they're carrying out, has to be constantly defended. It's actually the basis for the process. The problem is because faculty are hardwired to do peer review, they apply it to other institutional aspects as well. And I learned this the hard way, where the fire marshal came into one of our buildings and expressed their displeasure with a bunch of stuff that was in the hall. We had to have a big meeting with all the faculty to explain. And one faculty member got up and accused me of being Procrustean. And I said, I don't know what procrustean means, but I guess I am. But at the end of the day, we got to get this stuff out of the halls, and I'm happy to help you do it. Can we just, so you guys can go on and do your important work? We'll come to find out Procrustes was I can't remember, out of Greek mythology or Roman mythology, but it was a guy who hid in a cave, and as people would wander by, he would bring that person, he would capture that person and put them on this iron bed. And if the person was too short, he would chain them and stretch them to fit. And if they were too long, he would chop off the parts. And so the term being procrustean is someone who, with no mercy, forces people to fit into a certain prescribed box, so to speak. And I thought, wow, that's a good term for safety. I guess that's true. But at the end of the day, Mr. Fire Marshal or Miss Fire Marshal doesn't like this. And in order for us to do our important work. So I didn't, I expected critical review. I didn't take it personally. We actually went out and moved the boxes. Now everybody's a happy human. So just expect critical review. They're hardwired to do so. It's just the nature of the business, but don't take it personally. So what is it that frustrates the faculty? Anything that interferes with actual teaching, research, or service. So interruptions. Is safety good at interrupting? Yeah, I get this question all the time. Should safety schedule the lab inspections? My answer is yes. Well, then the retort is, but then they'll probably change and clean up stuff before we get there. Yeah, probably so. But at the end of the day, you're going to irritate them more if you just pop in with no advance advice, and that just alienates the relationship with the faculty. Apparent bureaucracy, yes, we're very good at that just because we get confronted with all these rules and regulations. Chores and meetings, the pushing down of tasks, and then any impediments to getting grants out the door. These are the things that send the faculty into sub-Earth orbit. So we have to reflect on how we carry out our tasks and make it minimally invasive when we're dealing with the faculty. The great irony of all this is that research, by definition, is doing something that hadn't been done before, yet funding agencies and institutions demand timelines and budgets. And you tell me when it is you're going to invent the anti-gravity machine. So thus, from the onset, faculty are frustrated with the process, yet it's essential to success. So just understand that's why some of them seem pretty grumpy. Now, this is a really important slide. When one applies for a grant from a major funding agency, the university has entered into a negotiation to calculate what's called indirect cost recovery. And indirect cost recovery is that cost that the university bears to support the research being carried out. So it's to pay for the electricity and the housekeeping and all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's an overhead cost that's negotiated between the university and the funding agency. In our case, ours with NIH, ours is about 50%. But the most important point here is it's the amount of money above and beyond the direct cost of the research. So let's say I get $1 million grant, then the check is for $1.5 million. Now the faculty feel as though that extra $500,000 should go towards supporting me and my important work that I'm doing. Whereas the university administration is saying, wait a minute, this stuff doesn't grow on trees. We've got to do all these different things. So it's a constant source of contention between the faculty and the administration. And the argument will be the faculty member goes into the department chair or the dean and says that money should go towards supporting me. And they turn around and say, who's the check made out to? It's not made out to Bob Emery. It's made out to the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. You wouldn't have been awarded this if you weren't a faculty member on our campus. So that's a tension point. So people ask me, should safety be funded out of indirect cost recovery? My response is, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you are perceived as being funded out of indirect cost recovery. What you need is to be able to tell the story. How much money do we need to run a good safety program? That's our responsibility, to tell us we need, and then we need X amount of money to run this program. And then it's your boss and the bosses up there to make a decision what pots do those monies come out of at the end of the day. And by the way, another thing, I'll pause here and we have a discussion about this. I always get the question during these peer reviews, and Scott can chime in here, is where should safety report? Should it report to business affairs? Should it report to facilities? Should it report to research? Blah, 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 blah. And my response over time has just been, you know what? It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. What's most important is you should report to someone who supports the program. Because in our travels, I've seen programs that do very, very well and they report on our administration. We happen to report under research. We've been very fortunate here. We've had very good support. But conversely, we've seen settings where regardless who they reported to, they were not being supported very well. And I see Scott there. Scott, by all means, chime in there if you.
Yeah, I cannot overemphasize the importance of what you said about it really doesn't matter at the end of the day as long as you are sufficiently supported. That's most important. And we're going to be talking about the way that we communicate about our EH&S programs through data and data display over this week and next. And all of that is important when communicating with stakeholders at your organization, your boss, and leadership in order to convey what it is that you do and make sure that you get the necessary resources and support for your EH&S activities. So.
Okay, great. You'll hear, I don't know how many of you are involved in contracts and grants, but there is an interesting subtlety. The university gets a contract. They set up a contract, which is a business arrangement to supply a certain set of goods for or services at a fixed price. So you might have a contract for housekeeping. You might have a contract for getting the hazardous waste picked up. You might have a contract for doing air sampling for the EPA in your region or something like that. A grant is a little different. It's the formal bestowing or transfer of funds in hopes that there will be some societal benefit that may occur. One of my brothers, I'm from a family of 8, one of my brothers was an attorney for the Department of Army, and he was telling me, he says, Bubba, let me explain it to you this way. That was my nickname growing up. And he says that the grant is when the government casts money upon the waters in hopes that a few dollars will wash back to the benefit of society. I thought that was a very apt description. Where this gets confusing is you might get a grant that within it has some subcontracts. So in other words, we want to do this nationwide study. It's housed out of Houston, but now we're setting up subcontracts with other universities to do stuff. So it becomes very complicated. I ran contracts and grants for a while. It's just something you really need to appreciate. But you darn sure want to make sure that the safety program is not gunking up the works. In other words, make sure those approvals are in, because they're always at the last minute, these deadlines. You want to make sure radiation safety's got their approvals, biosafety, chemical safety, and then if you can assist animal care, human research, that sort of thing. Okay, the big day comes up. It's promotion and tenure time. So at a predetermined time, the faculty member is forced to apply for promotion or tenure or both, because in effect it's up or out. So you get a call and say, hey, Emery, your 5-year contract's up. Summarize your teaching, research, and service. And then it varies by school and institution. But in my case, when I went up for both associate and full, my CV was blinded and then sent to 5 different schools of public health around the country. And essentially they asked the question, would you give this person promotion? It's then a secret ballot. That can be somewhat problematic because you may be working with your colleagues who you presume will vote for you. And then guess what? Maybe they didn't vote for you. So because it was a secret ballot. And then the outcome is either promotion or no promotion, or tenure or not tenure. And that can be very traumatic. And this is exactly where abandoned labs come from. So you've been working away. You feel pretty good. You've got a pretty impressive CV and report. You think from your colleagues that you stood around the coffee pot that they're going to vote for you, and lo and behold, you get voted off the island. So are you motivated to label your chemical waste and those sorts of things once you've been voted off the island? And I'm sure people in this class have dealt with this, where there's just an abandoned lab, and now you got all these problems you've got to deal with. One of the tricks I've learned is that, first of all, the promotion and tenure day is not a day to have a fire drill. It's not a day to institute or launch a new sustainability program or whatever it is you want. It's a day to lay low and just surf the web. But once you find out what the outcome of this is, if you know that some person has a bunch of stuff, what I normally do is give it a couple of days off, and then I go up and visit them and say, Dr. Smith, I'm so sorry to hear about this, but her main job is to get another position. But I told him, once you figure out what's going to happen, let me know, and I will pay to ship this stuff to your new location. And you may ask yourself, why in the world would you do that? Well, at least that first of all, I'm the only friend they got. And second of all, it engages them in properly labeling and shipping the stuff in a safe and compliant manner rather than just leaving. And it's a lot cheaper to do that than when you have to start identifying unknowns and some of the challenges inherent to that. So if you lay a timeline on this, if you get a bachelor's degree at age 22 and then you do a master's and doctorate and postdoctoral fellowship and then sign that contract, that's 15 years of career uncertainty. You're now age 37. And if you don't make it, if you don't get promotion and tenure, you're pretty greatly limited now because you're kind of painted, so to speak. So it's quite stressful. So we need to acknowledge that in our activities. So some other things the faculty may complain about is there's not enough time, there's too many demands. Yeah, I get it. Their genuine love for one aspect, but impacts others. In other words, they were a very good teacher, but they couldn't do much research. They didn't realize they were going to be a small business operator. There's a lot of paperwork, the absence of bridging funds, monies to carry you from one grant to the other. My all-time favorite is interfering with academic freedom. That's the get out of jail free card with faculty. And then this lack of mentoring where people are so busy, someone doesn't sit down and kind of tell you some of the tricks to the trade, which I hope that we're sharing some of these things now through this course. So what about EH&S complaints about faculty? Well, they're last minute. They always wait till last minute. Why do they do that? Well, guess what? They're kind of busy. Well, they're pack rats. Yeah, guess what? Because that grant, they slugged hard to get that grant and they're not giving that money back. So they may save some of this stuff and some of it might be picric acid, but you kind of get the idea. They're irritable. Well, duh. They don't comply. Now, I want to pause there for a second because I want each of you to promise once you complete the Bob Emery College of Nuclear Knowledge that you will strike this word from your lexicon. Do not ever use the word comply in a university environment. Because if you look up the word comply, it says to force to adhere to the wishes of others. And there is no more toxic term to throw out in front of a faculty member than the word comply, because they're going to immediately, I remember back to the hallway thing. The stuff is in the hallway. This guy says to me, fully tenured professor, Emery, show me a case control study with a p-value of less than 0.05 that students will spontaneously combust in the hallway when walking by these boxes. And I'll wait for the peer-reviewed journal paper, right? Well, at the end of the day, this guy just wants to do research on whatever it was, neurobiology and anatomy or something. But, this notion of throwing out compliance, and sometimes the rules are pretty stupid, we have to admit. We just have to understand that what we're trying to do is, yes, Dr. Smith, I understand your work's very important. I just want you to be able to do the important work. I will come and help you. Let's just move this stuff and move it along. They constantly criticize policies. That is true. And they're creative. Well, duh, that's what you hired them to be creative. So guess what? That's what you're going to get. Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up, and I'm going to show you a couple of books here, some references, and then I'll stop yapping. So some suggestions. Number one, I think every staff member needs to get this lecture. It doesn't need to be from me. It doesn't even need to be from this class, but it would be nice if everybody, when they're coming on board, to get, even if they're a long-time employee, to understand how universities work and the needs of faculty, and understand and appreciate the faculty most important. An interesting trick is to invite faculty to the department to talk about their work. We've had that several times. We've had faculty members come in and talk about the really interesting work that they're carrying out and what we do to help them achieve their goals. Have the department apply for a grant or two and manage it, because that now all of a sudden you realize all of the headaches associated with getting grants. Have the department staff attend seminars and research days to see the outcomes of their work. That's really impressive to say, oh, I'll be darned, I didn't know Dr. Smith was working on that. Have the director and others get active faculty positions, provide guest lectures, host student interns. I'm shocked at the number of universities we go to where they don't supplement their staff in the EH&S department with student interns. And many times in these academic programs, the students have to do internships or what they call here practica. So it's a win-win for everybody. We want to design our systems with faculty challenges in mind to keep it simple and non-invasive. And as Scott will talk about here in a little bit, solicit faculty feedback. Don't assume you know what's best. The mere fact that you do a survey and ask them, how are we doing and how would you like to see things done? That's very, very powerful and achieves some really interesting buy-in amongst the people that we serve here. So to summarize, the faculty are a key component of any institution of higher learning. The challenges they face are daunting. They have to constantly demonstrate success in teaching, research, and service. We need to develop and understand the needs of faculty and design systems with these in mind. We should solicit their feedback, and we should show how your program furthers the mission of the institution. Now, I want to point out 3 key references. I don't get a cut from these things, but these are 3 books that I think you might find interesting. The first one is by Kathy Barker. It's called At the Helm, and it's a book that she wrote about a new junior faculty member going out and setting up their own lab. And I actually have it in front of me here. And a few things that are interesting about this book. First, when I first got this book, I looked in the index under the letter C for the word compliance, and it does not show up at all. The word compliance is not in this book. But safety does show up, and I'm going to read you a quote from this book. The Laboratory Safety Department is your source of advice and information about safety in the lab. This is the second sentence, by the way. Some labs make this department the enemy, scoffing at the rules and regulations and lists, resenting inspections and avoiding training sessions. And then in italics it says, this is a mistake. It is not a good department to have against you, and the potential to harass a lab for non-compliance is great. Okay, now, my point is, I encourage you just to read this to get the perspective from the faculty side, because I suspect they were at a place where maybe the way safety was handled, it was not in a customer service orientation. So the next book I wanted to point out here is by Ginsberg. It's called The Fall of the Faculty, The Rise of the All-Administrative University. And I think you'll find this book hilarious. I actually read through it. Some of the things I found hilarious. Some of it's tongue-in-cheek, but it really does give you a perspective of what the faculty think with regard to administrative responses to things. And then last is this book called How Universities Work by Lombardi. Very interesting book. And if you find yourself in your career where you're going to spend it in the university environment, I think you would really benefit from reading a book like this to tell you about how universities work and some of the thrills and spills that are encountered. Because again, it's a very unique environment, but it's very complex. And I think there's a lot of things, and I'll part with this. I would encourage you to text in the chat box. Was there something, we went through this pretty quick, but were there things that you learned about the university environment that perhaps you didn't know before? So I'll wrap up there and stop sharing the screen. I don't know how we're doing on time here, but I will, I guess I can try to entertain any questions that come through. You can unmute yourself, or how are we doing on time, Michelle, Scott?
We're doing great on time, Bob. We're a few minutes behind, but we actually intentionally built in a little bit of fluff at the end with a Q&A session for exactly this. It's important to have a discussion. So now would be the time to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you like while Dr. Emery is here and available.
By the way, the goal of this entire course is when you're done, it's to figure out strategies to extort money from upper management. So, and we'll get to the magic formula later about square footage, but the key denominator on all this is what is it that predicts the EH&S staffing and budget? And it turns out to be not number of students, not number of employees, not number of buildings, not acreage, it's total net assignable square footage. And we can prove that in spades. We can actually prove it through now 5 different studies. We'll share with you later. We'll show that. But you want to know your square footage. Okay, any questions or chats?
Yes, this is Randy from San Jacinto College.
Uh-huh.
So now, like, thinking about the faculty and putting that in perspective, we haven't really heard their voices here too much. Is doing something like a survey a bad idea? I feel like that might just be, putting something, trying to see what they want generally before we just try to make a strategy, I guess, try to get their voices. I don't know if you ever like survey faculty too often or something like that.
We do, and Scott's going to do, I think later today, Scott will actually share with you, we've done, I don't know, about 15 different surveys of varying types, and we can get you those survey tools so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just go down and pick what questions that you think would be useful. And now by doing this stuff by ServQual or, some of these other things, it's very easy to do. And you can get it would help you set your priorities, because you might have one set of things you think are needed, but the faculty may have a very different opinion. And at least the mere fact you ask them is very, very powerful, because oftentimes administration just dumps stuff on them. but by asking their opinion to set your priorities, I highly recommend that. And we can share, we're happy to share the stuff. Any of the stuff that we talk about here, we're happy to share. We're a public institution, right? So I guess we'll upload it onto the Canvas site. I guess Michelle, if she's on, I guess that's how we're going to handle the sharing of this information. Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else before I scoot out of here?
Very quickly, I'll just share my own personal experience. For those of you who are in managers or director level positions, one of the tricks of the trade that I thank Dr. Emery for was when I first started back in this position over EH&S. He slid me a handwritten piece of paper, because Safety Bob likes to write handwritten notes on various shapes and sizes of paper in various different colored pen. Anyways, that's beside the point. He gave me a list of key faculty and staff that he thought was important for me to go on a learning and listening tour, to introduce myself, to build relationships with, and to get to know. And highlighted within this list or so-called VIPs, the great white sharks, so to speak, of the list. And so that served me well to have that mentoring and guidance at the front end of the position. So if you have the ability to make such a list for yourself or your team, I think it would serve you well to really understand who it is you serve and who some of those great white sharks are.
And when we do these peer reviews, and we're happy to share these lists with you, but we send to them, we're getting ready to do one at the end of April. And it'll be, okay, these key groups you work with, facilities, police, animal care, and then just asking them some pretty simple questions. How do you interact with safety? What do they do well? What do they do that drives you crazy? Those sorts of things. And then we come back with a collegial list and say, hey, you might want to think about this, or, look, here's some examples of how you might work this a little differently. At the end of the day, we're all in the same boat here. And as you well, all the people in this call will agree, one university messes up, everybody pays, right? When something goes wrong at an institution, there's a ripple effect that goes across. So it's something that we all have to share, because a rising tide elevates all boats. Because that's just the nature of the beast. If it goes wrong one place, it can really have a ripple effect. So we need to be cognizant of that. So. Okay, I got to scoot to actually teach the academic class on the other side here. So if anything comes up, don't be shy. Text us, or you can send messages through Michelle or Scott or whoever. Look forward to chatting. I think I'm chatting next week on Monday as well at some point. And if things throughout the week, if they come up, jot down some notes and we'll do the best we can to help you out. Okay. All right. I'm going to scoot here then.
Thanks, Safety Bob. For everyone else, it's 10:30 Central Standard Time. We're a few minutes behind, but we have built in plenty of time at the end of the session for question and answers. So let's go ahead and take a necessary biological break. We have 15 minutes scheduled, but I'll request that we reduce this down to 10 minutes. So why don't we plan on coming back at 10:40 Central Standard Time. That's 10:40 Central Standard Time. That'll give everybody 10 minutes for a biological break. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. All right, good morning, everyone. Again, Scott here. I've got 10:40 Central Standard Time. Let's give it one more minute, and we'll get started with the additional presentations. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I've got 10:41 Central Standard Time. I hope you guys had enough time for a quick break. Before we get started on the next topic, does anybody else have any other questions or discussion items? Okay, I always enjoy that presentation by Dr. Emery, and I've heard it a lot, but as he mentioned, I always learn something new myself as well. And certainly it always gets me thinking about different aspects of our program and our service offerings. And speaking about service offerings, we are a customer service oriented department here at UT Health. I know that many health and safety organizations, especially in academia, have focused on customer service as a primary approach. And what we determined over the course of time was that in order to prepare our staff members to be better equipped to go into our laboratories, our clinics, our mechanical rooms, or wherever they were evaluating risk and ensuring appropriate controls are in place, that we needed to provide additional cross-training for our staff members, each of whom, like all of us here in this course today, have come from different backgrounds with different experience, different academic preparations, and interests in the field. But we determined that it was important for us to set the expectations for cross-training. This wasn't based only on our own desire to improve customer service at our own organization, but from these various different peer reviews and trainings that we've done at other colleges and universities around the country and some internationally, we realized that this was important in those settings as well. And so we got together and put our heads together to create what we call the 50 questions. And perhaps some of you guys have heard about this before as we've shared it through platforms like SHEMA and other health and safety organizations. This 50 questions has become infamous, if you will, in regards to the power that it brings to organization and expectation for cross-training and understanding within the field in which we work. So this presentation will go over what we call the 50 questions that every safety staff member should know. As we've been talking about a little bit already, and certainly you guys probably understand from your day-to-day activities, that safety issues are not merely limited to a single risk or aspect. We have a dynamic teaching, research, and clinical care operation here at UT Health that we serve. And anywhere that you go on our campus, usually we have issues that come up that are multifaceted from a safety perspective. So we need to understand how difficult or complicated some of these things can be, and that we can't always look through one specific lens at an issue. Certainly enterprises like colleges and universities continue to expand in scope and complexity, but the safety programs may not grow in suitable proportion. And certainly we've been a victim of that as we have rapidly expanded with our clinical practice plan over the last couple of years. And so it's been a bit of a slingshot reaction, or maybe I should say boomerang reaction, where that growth in our clinical practice plan occurred, and now just now we're starting to catch up with convincing our leadership that we need additional help and support to have the appropriate bandwidth to do our job effectively across the 5 million square feet of space that we have within this dynamic setting. And certainly the ability to demonstrate how safety programs further the key missions of an organization is absolutely critical. Safety Bob just covered this in his presentation. And maintaining proportional support in terms of staffing, in terms of budgeting for safety programs is something that is absolutely essential, especially in our academic setting. So over the course of time, as we conducted these peer reviews, as we provided professional development training in a variety of settings, we started asking health and safety folks from different disciplines what different cross-training activities or information was most important to them. And this particular graphic is from the biosafety community when we were providing pre-conference courses at the ABSA International, the annual biosafety conference. We had a group of biosafety professionals that we asked what topical areas within health and safety would serve you best, that you know least about, to do your job more effectively. So many biosafety professionals are classically trained in the laboratory setting. Many of them come from the world of microbiology or molecular biology and wind up getting involved in safety and specifically biosafety as a profession. Others are safety professionals who have a specific interest or background in the same science, biology or microbiology. And so anyways, the point being that this group of professionals, biosafety professionals, identified risk management and insurance, hazardous waste, and some issues on chemical safety and occupational health as their top topical areas that they thought was important for cross-training and understanding. We've queried other groups, other subdisciplines of the safety profession equivalently to learn about what they want to know about. And that helped us to come up with the idea for this so-called 50 questions in terms of this feedback, as well as feedback from our own internal staff within our department. So this 50 questions we came up with was intended to encourage cross-functionality across these 50 key items. And by the way, we've grown beyond 50 questions or key things over the course of time, and I'll explain that in a little while. But what we determined was that these were the core things that all of our staff members should be able to understand and be able to answer to be as effective as possible for serving our organization or whatever organization that you work for. The 50 questions consists of both objective and subjective issues, and it took us a long time to come up with this list. This was not created overnight. This has been created over the course of time, over actually now many years. But when we first started out creating this for our own department, we got to our management level staff together. We huddled in our conference room and we threw a bunch of stuff on the whiteboard to see what we thought was most important. And we broke it down by programmatic areas. So biosafety, radiation safety, chemical safety, risk management, occupational health, fire safety, et cetera. And we started to list things, and the list, we had so many different aspects and questions or key things that we thought were important to know that we took time to debate, sometimes heatedly, to determine what were most important. We came, for the most part, to a consensus with our 50 questions when we finally put it all together. What's important is that as we unveiled this list of 50 questions to our group, that it helped to codify the expectations for understanding and learning. So by putting this in writing and allowing our staff to review the list of what they should know, they're able to identify what they already know based on their previous experience and academic preparations. And then they can do a knowledge gap and say, hey, I don't understand very much about these different topical areas or these key things. And so that's where we implement training initiatives to fill in some of those gaps. But what's important is that these 50 questions, regardless of who you are and how long you've been in the profession, even if you take time to go through and understand each and every one of them, it is not intended to make one omnipotent. There's always going to be caveats and twists and turns, unique situations or information that one cannot one person cannot possess everything. That's why building a good team in our profession is so important, to bring those minds with all that experience together. But this list is really intended to equip individuals with a fundamental awareness of the basic issues across the spectrum that we experience in our work setting, and specifically at an academic health center. We listed the questions that made most sense to us to be able to go out and address and evaluate risk in our laboratories, our clinics, our classrooms, in our mechanical rooms, even up on our roofs and outside of our buildings as well. We've shared this list broadly over the course of time, as I've already told you. What's important is that the list that we've created is not gospel. Your list may vary, and I would encourage you to take this list, which I'll give you here in a few moments, of the 50 questions, and review it for yourself. Review it with your department or your team. And you might not agree with everything that we've put together here. And so please change the questions and make it your own, because your list very well might vary based on the unique aspects of your work setting or your college or university where you reside. But I can assure you that if you go through the exercise of cross-training yourself or your team, that the ability to answer and comprehend this list, these roughly 50 questions, will put you in the top 5 to 10% of individuals within this profession, and in particular in the academic setting. And that includes management level staff as well. It's an important exercise to go through. We've learned, even when I go through our 50 questions over and over again, I always think about different things that should be on the list or that I should know. And so it's a living, breathing document. What we're going to share with you here in a few moments is what we've come up with. Please make this and use it for your own unique circumstances in your own respective institutions. The different topical areas that we have included in our 50 questions include our basic institutional parameters for UT Health. So basic understanding of many of the things that Dr. Emery just talked about in his How Universities Work presentation that we feel are important for our staff members to understand. And then we get into the so-called hard science areas, the key fields of health and safety or programmatic areas that we provide under our department. So fire and life safety, risk management and insurance, chem, rad, and bio. Our environmental protection is the hazardous waste management group for our setting. And then our newest and fastest growing arm of the department is hospital and clinic safety. And then the last one on the list is something we didn't initially include, but we've learned over the course of time that it is inappropriate to exclude security. Although we are not security professionals, nor are we expected to be security professionals, we are intimately intertwined with security on so many different aspects of what we do in health and safety every day that some of these security questions are very important for us and our staff. When we initially came up with our 50 questions, we did a pilot to make sure we were on the right track. We did this internally with our own department staff, and then eventually with previous participants of the EH&S Academy. So years ago, we had a smaller in-person session, 16 participants. We unveiled the 50 questions on the first day. We gave it to them without any answers. Okay, so we just asked the questions that we put together, and as honestly as they could, we asked for our 16 participants to go through the 50 questions and indicate whether or not they could answer this question for their own respective institution. Okay, as honestly, yes.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. I don't think we're seeing, we're still seeing your intro slide. I think we should be moving on to other slides. Sorry, I just noticed that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm scrolling through all the slides, but you can't see any of them?
We do not. You're not in presentation mode on my side.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
So others are saying intro slide as well. So let me stop sharing and let me try that again. I completely apologize, and thank you very much, Michelle, for jumping in. We actually run WebEx on a regular basis on my side, and I give these presentations on a regular basis, so I'm not sure what may have happened there. How about now?
Pilot application, the sanity check slide. See that?
Yep. So that's where I'm actually bloviating about right now.
Okay.
Let me go back and just make sure I just toggled between slides. Can you see that change?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure what got hung up previously, but thank you for letting me know. You didn't miss anything that I didn't already say on the slides so far. And by the way, you'll get the slide set within the Canvas slide deck, so you can review this on your own as well. So anyways, for the 50 questions in our pilot application here, we had the 16 participants of the EH&S Academy. As honestly as you can, please let us know whether or not you could effectively answer these questions for your own organization. And so people went through and they indicated yes or no. And then the second question we asked them was, in your opinion, do you feel that it would be important and beneficial to you to be able to know the answer to these questions? And then so yes or no. And what we got back from our EH&S Academy participants during this pilot was the following. So what you see here are 50 questions and the answers we received from the pilot. And we asked that first question, which was, could you right now, as honestly as possible, answer these questions? And what you see in blue are the answers that were received. The second question that we asked is, would this be beneficial for you to know the answer to these questions? And so the answers we received were here in yellow. If you overlay the two, what you still see remaining in yellow essentially is your knowledge gap. This is where we know we need to focus in on to provide feedback to our folks and additional training to our folks to be better equipped with information and knowledge about these different areas where you see a lot of yellow. And so we'll kind of highlight some of those things as we dive in and share about the 50 questions here in a moment. Let me just take an example for you, though. Let's just take question number 10. And for those of you who might be following along, you'll see this. If not, I'll share this on the screen here in a moment. But question number 10 is related to a very important institutional parameter that Dr. Emery mentioned earlier, and that is the total net assignable campus square footage. So question 10 asks, what is our campus total square footage? Right, and what subset of that is dedicated to lab or clinical activities? Right, so that information is important because we know that it is a statistically significant driver for EH&S budget and staffing levels based on Dr. Emery's recent peer-reviewed publication that he just put out. And so we have the answer to that. Specifically for UT Health, all of our folks should be able to understand that we have almost 5 million square feet of space, and a subset of that, which is almost 650,000 square feet, is dedicated to laboratory and clinical activities. And in total, it's interesting for our folks from a program management standpoint to understand that we possess 14 core buildings across our campus, which is not a contiguous campus, it's a non-contiguous campus. We're located in the Texas Medical Center, interspersed through a variety of high-rise buildings that belong to other organizations. And so we have to go back and forth between many different buildings in a highly densely populated urban setting. So that's important when it comes to figuring out how much time and resources we need to dedicate from getting back and forth to these different areas, in particular for things like hazardous waste pickups and things like that. So anyways, that's one of the areas that we knew had a big knowledge gap. So let me take down my presentation here for a moment, and I'm going to share with you the 50 questions. And this particular version of the 50 questions does not have our answers on it. I'm going to give you a completed version with the answers from the University of Texas Health Science Center, our answers on this, the same sheet that we give to all of our staff members when they first come on board, by the way. All of our new employees, we sit down with them and go through this list. That's when we do the knowledge gap evaluation. And we set up a training plan for our new employees to fill some of those gaps that might exist. We also go through during department meetings that we have and where we conduct continuing education for our staff. We focus in on some of these key areas that we know are needed, where we need to address knowledge gaps. And so this first set of questions, the first 10 you'll see are related to general program administration questions. So many of these questions are directly out of Dr. Emery's first presentation. What are the core missions of any university? All of us should be able to sing in harmony at this point in time. Teaching, research, and service is the core mission of any university, right? Our institutional components or constituents that we serve include our faculty, students, our staff, in particular for us, our medical residents as well. And you've already heard from Safety Bob, faculty being most important. What is the mission of our EH&S department? We have our little bumper sticker that we expect everybody to know. We exist to help people go home as healthy and safe as when they arrive on our campus each and every day. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes proactively to make that all happen. But that's a simple bumper sticker that we want all of our staff members to be able to iterate. And you may have your own version of that. Okay? I'm going to stop there and not read through all these. You guys can read through these yourself. I'm going to skip ahead to the next programmatic section, which is biological safety. So the each section of the 50 questions here forward focus on a programmatic area for our department that we feel is important for everybody to know about. Again, this is not intended to make everybody an expert in biological safety, for example, but everybody in our department should be able to know these basics so that when they go out and they conduct a lab safety evaluation, which we call ours evaluations, not inspections, that they should be able to know these basic things, that they can answer some basic questions for the researchers, for our staff members, and if they don't know something, they know who the content experts are within our biological safety program, that they can come back to our office and say, hey, I was stumped. This exceeded my experience or expertise, and so I need to involve somebody else. But the ability for that single person to go in, do an evaluation of risk in this laboratory setting and be able to answer some of these questions and not have to bring in a bunch of other people up front serves us well from a customer service standpoint. So you'll see there's some basic elements of biological safety that we expect people to know, like what is a biosafety level, right? What is a biosafety cabinet and how is that different from a chemical fume hood? That's a common question that we see often confused in the laboratory setting when we're conducting our surveys. So we focus on this in our training, but sometimes people with limited laboratory experience, when they first get started in the lab, they might not know some of these differences between a biosafety cabinet and a chemical fume hood, and so forth and so on. Skipping ahead to the next section, chemical safety, we expect our people to know some of the basics about chemical labeling, chemical storage, safety data sheets, looking at and evaluating chemical fume hoods in terms of the fume hood flow rate. That's something that we verify during our scheduled safety evaluations in our laboratory setting. So these are things that we cross-train all of our folks on to make them, help them understand all of these different things. Radiation safety, same thing. You know, basics about annual dose limits, right? For the whole body, for our skin and extremities, right? Some basics about dosimetry, and so forth and so on. Again, if your area of expertise is not radiation safety and you know nothing, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We just know that we should probably put you in as a new employee to our basic radiation safety training sometime in the first couple of weeks so that we can make sure you understand these basics. The next section is environmental protection. So understanding what our hazardous waste generator status is for our organization. What are the main waste streams that we generate in terms of hazardous waste, right? And so forth and so on. So we don't expect all of our people to go around and pick up waste and be experts on hazardous waste and environmental issues, but they know these basics. Occupational safety and fire prevention is the next section. So basics about our fire alarm panels, basics about fire extinguishers, AEDs, emergency showers, eye wash stations, things like that that we look at and review during our evaluations to make sure people are all on the same page about how they're used, the frequency of their inspections, and so forth and so on. Next section's on risk management and insurance. So a couple of questions about the basics of risk management, which we know was a big area of knowledge gap for our folks. And so we focus in on this a lot during our continuing education and cross training. And then the last section is on security. And I mentioned that this is the kind of newer or newest section that we've added. You'll notice that we do have questions throughout this document that I'm sharing with you right now that are not numbered. These are newer questions that we've added that go obviously well above 50, but things that we, over the course of time, feel that are important for our staff to know about. And the biggest growth area for the 50 questions has been in the security section. So some basics about security in relation to the expectation for badging on campus, being aware of insider threats. This is a topic that we focus in on for our staff because we're in and around our buildings all the time. And if we're doing our job right, we arguably probably should know our spaces and our people better than most. And so we can help to identify any anomalies related to insider threats or risks that might exist, and so forth and so on with security. Right. So we give this blank form to all of our folks at the beginning, and then we give them a completed version with all of the answers on it. And I'm going to give you both, but I would challenge you to take this blank form without answers and start penciling in on your own time after this course completes today what you know and what you don't know, and start identifying your own knowledge gaps. And for those of you who are managers or director level positions, start doing this for your greater program or department in terms of identifying which questions make most sense to you, which cross-training opportunities or activities exist for you and your staff members, and then start making a checklist of how you're going to achieve some cross-training or experiential things for your folks to get them up to speed on this. I'm going to start sharing my presentation again. Bear with me. So how did this all work out for us here at UT Health over the course of time? We dedicate, as I've already mentioned, our department meeting. We get together on Friday mornings for what we call a continuing education session. This is part of our culture here in our departments. Everybody knows that we carve out an hour every Friday morning for a department meeting. We start out with a few updates about what's been going on related to health and safety that's important for everybody to understand during the first couple of minutes of the session. And then we assign somebody in our department to provide cross-training on a technical area in their area of expertise. So somebody from biosafety gets up and talks about bloodborne pathogens. Somebody from chemical safety gets up and talks about safety data sheets, chemical labeling, and hazard communication. Somebody from radiation safety gets up and talks about the basics of dosimetry, and so forth and so on. And we knock out those different topical areas to make sure our people are sufficiently cross-trained, and we provide the opportunity for discussion and dialogue, questions and answers, so everybody's on the same page about these different topical areas. The rationale for why this information is on our 50 questions is always part of the discussion, and we codify through the 50 questions the expectation for knowledge, and that really helps us from a management perspective, and it helps our employees too, because they know what they need to understand at the onset and ongoing when they work in our department. What is the outcome of this? For us, and certainly for others that we've shared this with, that we've gotten feedback from, we have a marked improvement in staff understanding of the overall processes, of the different programs, what they're all doing, what the expectation for basic knowledge is. The improved customer service is certainly something we have witnessed because we have more or less a one-stop shop when we're going out and evaluating risk and performing safety evaluations. Again, all of our people are not experts in everything, but at least they can answer the basic questions, and it minimizes disruptions and the number of times we have to go back with different people to many of these settings. And we also, our people understand who the key points of contact are, who are content experts when they need to bring in other people. We have improved management confidence and assurance of our own staff when we can help them understand the so-called big picture. And from a stakeholder's perspective, their perception of our program, when we cross-train them, when we allow them to be more effective from a knowledge and certainly customer service perspective, they view that as a less duplication of efforts when somebody can go in as a one-stop shop, so to speak. And it certainly has initiated pathways for future learning and professional development. That roadmap is really important to help fill those knowledge gaps when we sit down and we go through this list of questions with our different staff members to start identifying where we can plug them in for additional training and experience.
Scott, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you again. We're
Please.
seeing the 50 questions slide if we're supposed to be seeing something else.
Yeah, I don't, Michelle, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on here. I'm toggling through my slides like I was before, but you guys aren't seeing that.
No, so if you want to stop sharing and try to reshare, we'll get that fixed. WebEx must be just having a Monday.
I guess so. Maybe it's because we have so many people participate. I don't know. How about now? You got outcomes to date?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm toggling through, and I didn't realize that you guys can't see that. So please throw some rotten fruit and vegetables at me if that happens again, please. So, anyways, yeah, this is initiated pathways for us for our professional development. In terms of utilization in the EH&S Academy, our participants in the past certainly have consistently indicated that this has been a great value to them to take back to their own setting, to make their own, and I would highly encourage you to do that. Take this as one of the action items for you as a takeaway from this course. And certainly it's, although it's not rocket science to put all this together, it did take time, and we've, as I've mentioned, evolved this over the course of many years. And so it's a novel approach for many, but as you take this home, don't make it don't solidify it in concrete. It's a living, breathing document, and it's certainly something we want you to use into the future. And I welcome your feedback on what you see so far and how this might help you, or do you have any other suggestions for how we might use the 50 questions going into the future? That's what I'll close out with here, is I will tell you that we've already exceeded 50 questions. You've seen that from what we've shown so far. And we're going to get this into your hands in terms of the list. Based on our peripheral role with security issues, that adding that security section has served us well. And I would envision we're going to continue to focus in on that for a while. One other thing that I think we missed the boat on initially, but we've done a little bit better job of, at least on our side, internally with our own staff, is hitting the hammer on the nail of the head, the head of the nail with the public health importance of some of these things. So whether we like it or not, if we're in health and safety, we're all more or less public health professionals. Safety Bob and I both teach at the School of Public Health, and we realize that some of these basic public health things were missing from our education and cross-training. And there are many drivers that are important for our staff to know and understand. So we started including that in our 50 questions and the cross-training that we provide. So basic things like, for example, we do our good health and safety deeds each and every day across our campus. We're trying to prevent accidents and injuries or worse from occurring. But I think it's important for people to recognize that that impact is very important. Each and every day in this country, over 4,000 people die each year in the workplace from workplace related accidents or injuries. So those are the things we're trying to prevent. That's a huge public health impact that we're involved with there. So, and there's many other twists and turns to that, but we're focusing in on the public health importance for our different questions. So I will stop there and ask if there's any questions, or if you guys have some feedback. I do notice that we have something in the chat box, so give me a second here. Let me just take a peek at this.
Yeah, Scott, I actually want to circle back to bloodborne pathogens and needle sticks, because it seems that some of our attendees may not have experience with how to handle that. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one way we hit that here is during our HR training, preliminary training for all employees. I think we have a short course that they have to take. I'm not sure if that depends on their job role, but I remember taking it. And then perhaps, as April mentioned, it's an annual OSHA requirement. Perhaps there's something to be done with our annual compliance training that, safety and HR can get together and have a short course developed on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done some peer reviews where, despite the best intentions, these key steps to responding to an exposure to bloodborne pathogens is spelled out in some long dialogue or in so many steps that it becomes a little bit confusing or convoluted. Having this clearly and succinctly communicated and having everybody on your campus singing from the same songbook, and maybe there's a different process for employees versus students, that's fine. But in just a few short steps, all of the training materials, all of your documentation in terms of exposure control plans, information on the website should all be consistent, clear, and succinct. That would be my recommendation on this. So, and your recommendation about refresher training, et cetera, is very important.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion about the 50 questions? Okay. The normal thing that we would do now if we were here in person is that we would basically keep the 50 questions off to the side. And as we go through the hard science topics throughout the course of the week, you could start populating some of this information for your own organization into the blank list. Since we're not here together, I would encourage you to do that. Although we're not covering the hard science topics in part 1 of this course, I would encourage you to go through this, as I mentioned, and to start populating what you may or may not know and what's important for you and your team in terms of cross-training and the like. So, okay, moving along to the next topic. Let me just close my slides out here. Oh, 1 second. We are going to now cover what we call client satisfaction. So obtaining feedback about your safety program. This is something that is really important and near and dear to our hearts. I know some of you guys probably do this. I like going through this presentation and learning about what others do to obtain feedback, but we'll talk about why this is important in our profession. And I'd like to hear back from you guys as much as possible. So please don't hesitate to jump in at any time throughout the presentation. This presentation focuses on targeted methods for obtaining feedback about your EH&S program. Something that we've done for a number of years, as Safety Bob alluded to, and that's what we're going to talk about here. I just advanced my slide. Are you guys able to see okay?
Yes, we see your change in focus.
All right, perfect. Just want to make sure. Thank you. So as we've already alluded to a little bit, certainly you guys have experienced this hopefully in your own respective campuses, but rather than having the command and control approach that EH&S programs used to have many years ago, many of us have become more service oriented now with the goal and alignment in support of the mission of the institution, the organizational goals. That's something that has served us well by taking this approach rather than going in with the so-called officer or cop badge on with our, that has not necessarily worked so well for us in regards to our safety program. And so we realized that as this evolution has occurred, that one of the ways that we can improve our customer service is understanding what our customers or clients feel about our services across our organization. And so feedback is certainly critical to us. However, we realized in the past that the way that we were obtaining feedback was not necessarily the best for us to make the improvements and to fully understand how we can make those improvements within our program. So in the past, we obtained feedback in a variety of different ways, typically unsolicited feedback, like basically somebody calling up, sending a nasty email, calling and complaining. Rarely did we, and certainly today, it's very rare that people pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, I just wanted to call you because you guys are so great in EHS. Oftentimes people will call because they've got some sort of beef, some sort of complaint. And so that unsolicited feedback is certainly important. We need to act upon that, but it's not a proactive method. When we conduct our various different training courses, you guys might do the same, where you provide a health and safety training. At the end of the training, you obtain feedback through some critique form or set of questions. And so these so-called smile sheets are important, but that really focuses more on the content of the training or the delivery of the training, maybe the modality, but not necessarily about your different programmatic areas, depending on what you're asking about. Every once in a while, we certainly are included, maybe you guys have been as well, in some formalized large organization survey. So maybe there's a series of questions that are asked about different things from the overall administration's perspective, and maybe they'll throw in a few health and safety related questions. We've certainly done that in the past, and that's fine, but it doesn't allow you to target your different programmatic areas necessarily. When we've been asked to participate in these larger surveys, they're typically very generic questions, and they're very limited in terms of the total number of questions we can ask. And then there's lots of passive ways that people can let us know how we did. I see on people's websites, hey, click here to provide feedback to us, or maybe even on the signature of somebody's email, they have click here to let us know how we did. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But again, it's not necessarily targeted. It's more passive in terms of how we obtain feedback. So we decided that we needed to take a more proactive approach here at UT Health. This is many years ago where we decided to do this. We realized that the work to date about client satisfaction that we had conducted was focused on routine safety surveillance. This was something that when we go out and we do safety inspections, we call them surveys, as I mentioned, we realized that we had some efficiencies that we could build into the process in terms of the way that we communicate about the surveys, communicate the findings, the corrective actions, things like that. And so we decided that we wanted to ask our principal investigators and the people within our labs how we were doing. We asked a series of questions about whether or not our staff were courteous, whether we were allowing them to continue their research activities without too many interruptions, were our staff knowledgeable, do we pick up your waste on time, things like that. We knew from previous unsolicited feedback that these were things that we needed to work on. And when we asked in a proactive fashion, targeted towards our principal investigators and the research staff in our lab, the response was actually quite good. Our ratings overall were primarily positive. Over 90% were kind of approval ratings or positive ratings, so to speak. But what we didn't necessarily realize at first was the power of even asking the questions. By going out in a proactive fashion and asking in a targeted fashion about our services and what we could do to do better, many of the responses we got from our principal investigators and our staff members within the labs was, hey, thanks for asking, and we appreciate your willingness to have a continuous quality improvement program in place. And so we've been able to demonstrate through the subsequent surveys that we've done related to client satisfaction for our EH&S program that it's really a powerful tool for demonstrating our goodwill value to the institution and to showcase that to our leadership within the organization, certainly to our staff as well. But that was certainly something that we learned during that initial survey that we performed related to our laboratory inspection program. Here's the challenge with doing these types of surveys. Certainly, surveys, if you send them out, you don't ask the right questions the right way, you can have misunderstanding or misinterpretation. The other big thing is client expectation. So it's important that feedback from surveys can potentially be skewed or misleading if client expectations are not first understood. The trick is to first understand what client expectations are, and then conduct your operations accordingly. So for example, realistic expectations are things that are perceived as not being achieved. Like, for example, if you are not coming and picking up my hazardous waste, as you say that's one of your core service lines, then that's a problem. We need to recalibrate our operations to be able to meet the expectations of the clients, which is that you're going to show up and you're going to pick up my hazardous waste when I call it in and request that you pick it up. That's what you guys say you do. You got to walk the walk and talk the talk here. But what is important is if that the clients have an unrealistic expectation. So, for example, if I call in, I'm a laboratory research principal investigator, and I call into the hazardous waste request line, or I submit a online request to have my waste picked up, my expectations should be calibrated accordingly so that I know that waste isn't going to instantaneously go away within 5 minutes after soliciting or submitting that request. Our expectations are set that when you submit the request, we are going to pick that waste up on a Monday, a Wednesday, or a Friday. So if you submit the request by this time, before each of those days, then you're going to have your waste picked up on that next scheduled day. That allows our people within our labs to understand and have realistic expectations for the service that we provide, because picking that waste up in 5 minutes or less after this submission is put in is completely unrealistic. So realistic and unrealistic expectations are something to consider. We've always used the SWCOEH tool, especially at the onset when we first started developing these surveys. This is a tool that is used in the marketing world, developed by Perez and his team. And it basically helps to show that service performance is aligned with expectations. And so this is a really interesting approach. We deep dive into this to kind of understand and drive the direction for how we asked questions within our different client satisfaction surveys. And I'll share that with you over the next couple of slides, and you can see how we built up our approach. And again, this is not gospel. This is just how we decided to do it. And we like to share this with the different EH&S programs so you guys can consider using this for your own. And certainly to have you think about how you ask these questions if you're going to go out and proactively solicit client satisfaction from your different stakeholders. So under this Perez group, they had 5 dimensions of service quality that they have are quite important. Tangibles, reliability, responsiveness, assurance, and empathy. So we chose these to incorporate into our question set. Things like the tangibles: appearance of our staff, appearance of our facilities, reliability, the ability to perform a promised service dependably on time, reliably. Are we responsive? And are we willing to help our clients and provide prompt service? Are our people knowledgeable? Are they courteous? Which in turn instills trust and confidence. And then, are we empathetic? That's very important in our field of work. Are we caring, and do we provide individualized attention? Ultimately, the SWCOEH tool has 22 paired statements related to these expectations and perceptions. We chose just a few of those for our particular approach. But an example from the SWCOEH tool is when an excellent cable TV company promises to do something by a certain time, they will do it. That's the expectation of the customer. When you call in and you want to get cable TV installed, these days it's fiber. I just upgraded to fiber at my house, and my life has been changed forever. So if you don't have fiber and you're thinking about doing it, I would recommend it. That's my goodness. Anyways. The expectation is set, and then you can work from there. The SWCOEH tool uses the Likert scale, 7-point Likert scale. So you can determine whether somebody is completely dissatisfied or completely satisfied and everything in between. And summarizing that information and displaying it effectively about the results is important not only for your internal review, but for your stakeholders as well. So what we did was we decided to take this SWCOEH tool and make it our own. And we decided to upgrade our approach, and we reviewed the existing safety approvals that we had through our various different safety committees. So we identified 280 principal investigators that we targeted for our initial official client satisfaction survey. We modified our questionnaire based on the paired statement approach. We used the reliability, responsiveness, assurance, and empathy points. And this was way back when. For those of you who are younger, you probably won't even believe this, but way back when we had to actually use our campus mail and pieces of paper printed out with the survey questions on them. We mailed them out to these 280 individuals. We had a self-stamped return envelope, so to speak, to return the surveys to us via campus mail. And we asked them to fill out everything on that paper form. We gave them 3 weeks to respond. Ultimately, we got a 32% response rate, which with the old-fashioned way, via pen and paper, so to speak, that's not too bad. And then we took all of the information, all the feedback from these surveys, and we had one of our staff members put it into a spreadsheet and display it graphically so that we could showcase it to our stakeholders, both internally within our program and to our leadership, et cetera. And what we asked was, again, using these paired statements, what is your perception of what an ideal, excellent EHS program would look like in terms of these different parameters, in terms of knowledgeable, courteous, responsiveness, empathy, et cetera. And so the first response here is what people indicated would be ideal, obviously be high on the Likert scale. And then if you overlay how our UT Health EHS program does, for the most part, we fit into what the expectations of our clients were on that. So that was all good news. No epiphanies here necessarily, other than we were able to give ourselves a pat on the back for the most part. We knew we had some area of improvement with things like being prompt and responsive with some of these requests. So getting this feedback was important. This was just the start to our client satisfaction survey approach. The results provided tangible evidence that we could provide to our staff members, to our leadership. It became a powerful leverage tool to gain additional resources. So if we were lacking in certain areas, we could leverage that information and feedback directly from our customers to get additional staffing or put additional resources to make priorities for goals, things like that. Written comments and feedback were things that were very important to us as well. So sure, we might have them fill in a bubble or answer a question a specific way, but the written free text that we get back is often very, very powerful and puts things into context for us in terms of the feedback that we get back. Most interestingly, this was great for staff morale. Our EHS program staff really liked going through this exercise, getting the feedback. It is a nice pat on the back, but guess what? When you get feedback that isn't so good, it's a continuous quality improvement program or opportunity that you can take, and we do that on a regular basis to improve our programs based on the feedback. So what we chose to do was, over the course of time, target different programmatic areas. That first effort with the 280 individuals, those principal investigators, got that survey based on their overall perception of our EHS program. But now we were going to get more targeted. So we chose, over the course of time, we chose once per year to do this effort, where we would go to the clients of our different technical programs, radiation safety, chemical safety, biosafety, et cetera. And once per year, we would send out a survey. And over the course of time, we moved away from paper surveys and we went to electronic surveys. And now we do this all on the Qualtrics platform. You can use SurveyMonkey or whatever online platform you use. We use Qualtrics here. And that allows people to get that survey in their inbox and provide their feedback electronically from the comfort of their own desk. That comes back to us electronically in an anonymous fashion. And so these different programmatic areas we have targeted over the course of time. More recently, based on feedback that we've gotten from the EHS Academy participants and from some other professional development courses, somebody asked us one time, hey, have you ever asked about how you administratively operate your safety committees? So Biosafety Committee, Chemical Safety Committee, Radiation Safety Committee. Here at UT Health, we have what is called the Safety Council. That's our overarching institutional-wide safety committee. We administratively promulgate those committees. And so somebody asked us, hey, how is your committee member satisfaction? You know what? Heck, we've never asked that. So that was actually the target for our survey a couple of years ago, and I'll share some results from those with you. And then over the last couple of years, we've really targeted on feedback from some of our what we call partner departments, police, animal care, facilities, et cetera, where we've determined how we interact and work side by side with some of these key partner departments, which has provided some really important feedback to us. When we started out, we asked some basic targeted questions about things like our administrative support. Hey, our commitment to the institution is that during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., when you call safety, when you call our department or our main line, a live, breathing human being answers the phone. That's very important to us. It's very simple. We provide coverage of the phones throughout the day. And we wanted to know, are we doing a good job of that? When you call us, do we answer the phone within 3 rings? Do you get a timely response to any questions or concerns that you might have? Is the person on the other end of the line courteous? Could they answer questions? Or if they couldn't answer questions, did they get a solution for you? Could they offer suggestions or alternatives? That was all very important for us. And you can see we needed to improve the way that we offered solutions or suggestions or alternatives. So that important feedback came back to us. Now, you'll notice as a trend, as I go through the next couple of different surveys, we always ask a comparative question, because structuring these questions is very important. The way that you ask the question is really important. What we always ask at the end of each one of our surveys is, compared to your other experiences, how does EHS perform? And in this particular question, when you call around or you solicit information from other departments or units on our campus, how does EHS prepare? Or how do we perform? Sorry. And what was good for us to get back is that when people call us, not only do you get a live breathing human being on the phone, but that we were exceeding the expectations in comparison with other departments and units on campus in terms of how we're able to respond. So that helps provide assurance to our staff that we're doing a pretty good job there. The way that you display the results of these different surveys is important. We'll show you a couple different techniques and tactics. This one is a graphic from one of the surveys we conducted one year of people who have been hurt on campus during their teaching or learning or work activities. And we wanted to know about their experience filling out the first report of injury that we require for anybody who has an accident or injury on our campus, and then what that meant to them in terms of whether or not they needed medical attention, what it meant for their supervisor with the process, and we just wanted to find out about the overall process for reporting accidents and injuries. And so in Tuffy-like fashion, at the top we have this Pac-Man looking segment, which I think was important, very important for us to convey up front, in that a majority, the light lime green Pac-Man, big Pac-Man color, is employees on our campus that didn't have an accident or injury or never reported an accident or injury. So although the numbers might look like, wow, we have all these accidents and injuries on campus, that yes, we take great pride in recording all those, the record keeping associated with those, and following up with investigations to learn what happened. But the point being that a majority of the people on our campus didn't have an issue with an accident or injury. But for those who did, we got feedback about their experience filling out the first report of injury form. And then for those who needed medical attention or had lost time, what that experience was like. And then what it was like for those who were supervisors. Everything from how to fill out the form. Was a form helpful to you? Did you know where to access healthcare? Did you have any issues associated with these processes? And this feedback was really important. So that way that we displayed this information was very effective when we were sharing this with our safety committees, with our own internal staff, and with our leadership. Another way to display the results is in this table format. And this is an example of our survey of the principal investigators who had an active IBC or Institutional Biosafety Committee protocol to determine how our biosafety program was doing to serve them. So we asked a series of questions of those principal investigators to determine how our program staff does in terms of understanding your needs and requirements as a faculty member or researcher. Did they have adequate access to our program staff via phone or email? Did they feel that our program staff responds to our requests in an acceptable time frame? Do they feel that the program staff had adequate professional knowledge? So that again ties back to the 50 questions in our approach with cross-training and professional development for our team. Does our program staff provide helpful and courteous service? Right? Are you able to obtain assistance if you had any issues submitting an institutional biosafety protocol? Renewal or update. And these questions, the next couple questions actually were quite important because at the time that we conducted the survey, we had just implemented the new online protocol submission system. So we moved away from the old paper format where principal investigators would submit their feedback via paper to this online submission process. So the next couple questions were really targeted at that process. In your opinion, do you feel that accessing the Institutional Biosafety Committee protocol submission system is convenient? And then are people happy with the instructions and the completion of the online form? And do you feel that the online protocol system allows for easier initial submission, update, and renewal compared to the old paper-based process? So getting this feedback was quite good. And then again, as I mentioned, the last question we always ask is compared to others within the organization or maybe your experiences elsewhere, how do we compare? So the question is, if you have been involved with biological safety programs at other institutions, please rate how we compared with your other experiences. All right. I'm going to share with you a few other examples of client satisfaction surveys in a moment, but just to wrap up this PowerPoint presentation, this institutional EH&S programs, we're service intensive operations. That is our core mantra now for our own programs here at UT Health. I would imagine for many of you that is the same. It's important, very important to understand client expectations before we measure satisfaction, or else the results may be difficult to interpret. Formal surveys quantify intangibles, and certainly merely asking has proved its worth to us to actually ask for feedback from some of these key parties on our campus goes a long way. And it's a great way to capture and display the program's goodwill value, both internally for our own staff, to our leadership, and others who care. There's a variety of good references, which you'll find in this presentation that I encourage you to take a peek at if you're interested more in this topic, including the link to this Perez approach. And I'm going to get out of the presentation right now, and I'm just going to share with you a couple of other recent client satisfaction surveys that we have provided on our campus over the last couple of years. I mentioned that some of our partner departments were the focus of our satisfaction surveys over the last couple of years. In particular, in 2021, we asked questions of our animal care group. We call it the Center for Laboratory Animal Medicine and Care, or CLAMC. So we asked our veterinarians, our vet techs, our animal husbandry managers, and so forth about how they interact with us and our department staff. This is an important partner group on our campus. And we ask those questions that are very similar. You might recognize many of these questions about the way that they interact with us, training, responsiveness, empathy, etc. We do have a couple of key questions that we threw in here for ALAC accreditation purposes in terms of enrollment in occupational health program, etc. And reporting, are you aware of the process for reporting injuries, and so forth and so on. What is interesting is, and I'm not sharing it on this particular screen, although the feedback was primarily positive, we did get one person in particular who was a little unhappy. We did a deep dive on that to make sure we understood why we fell short. And then what was really interesting on this particular survey is we got a lot of really important, really helpful written feedback. And like I said, these guys are extremely important partners of ours on our campus in terms of the health and safety program that we provide for the research entity. on our campus. And I have to be honest, a lot of the written feedback was not all roses. We had some things that were provided back to us that were clearly need for improvement. We took the bull by the horns with that feedback, and we have met with Clamsy leadership and staff to understand more about where we fell short. And we made department goals or program goals that were specifically related to this feedback to address those shortcomings. And that has been a great way for us to improve the quality of our program. Some of the feedback was specific to our training programs. And so that feedback was really important. Let me show you a little bit more for our client satisfaction. The next one is UT Police. Are you guys able to see the police survey now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the police are another really important partner of ours on campus, in particular for many of the security-related features of our labs and clinical operations. So we took the opportunity in 2020 to obtain feedback from our partners within the UT Police that serve us and MD Anderson here on our campus. And we ask many of the similar questions that you might recognize in terms of our interactions with the police in our department. And we threw in a couple of questions about how we provide training. We also do respiratory fit testing, emergency preparedness and response training, and the like for these folks. And so we did get some disagreements in terms of some of the questions, and we knew where those areas of improvement were. And again, we took the opportunity for that improvement opportunity to improve the quality of some of our services. So I'm happy to share any and all of these electronically with you. I just wanted to share some examples of the more recent customer service or client satisfaction surveys that we've provided. So I'll stop there and open it up for discussion, questions.
So Scott, we did have April from CSU asked, would you be willing to share those other surveys? And like you said you would. So if you send those to me, I will PDF them and put them in module 1.
Absolutely.
And the presentations.
I've said it already. I'll say it again. This stuff is not gospel. Please take these, use them as an example, make them your own. Your questions may vary that you want to ask of your different stakeholders, but I can assure you that the targeted approach, again, we do it once per year, has served us really well to do a client satisfaction survey for each of these different programmatic areas.
Hi, Scott. You know, our program has been in existence since 2014, and I joined in 2016. And this is really interesting, and especially since we've had the pandemic, it would be great to ask some questions of our stakeholders, clients. But we've never really sent out a survey like this, so you gave me an idea. We might take your questions and kind of modify them to fit our department, obviously, but it would be really interesting to get some feedback and maybe even something that could be published.
Absolutely. I'd highly encourage you to do that. And you reminded me of something that I wanted to say, but I failed to say it earlier. Think long and hard about who you want to include in your targeted survey. So in Fazia's example, I'm guessing that she has made and improved many relationships over this COVID-19 situation that either weren't in existence before or have been simply enhanced based on all the interactions during COVID during this situation. So think about who you want included. Once you determine who you want included in the survey, one opportunity for failure here is when you send these surveys out blindly. If you send them out in a way that people may perceive it as spam, or as a risk to be like phishing. So we've fallen, we're guilty of that ourselves. So the wording for the way that you solicit people to take the survey is important. The way we always do it is we communicate through our safety committees that we're going to do the survey. Here's the targeted group. We work through the leadership and management of that particular area to make them aware that the survey is coming. And then we always have them bless the wording for the solicitation before it goes out so that they agree with the wording, that it doesn't catch anybody off guard, or that we're not inadvertently saying something that we don't intend in that communication. And that feedback up front is important so that when it does go out, people are expecting to get it. It's very clearly stated what the time frame is that the survey will be open. I believe it helps to maximize participation and reduce any apprehension for providing feedback. Anybody else?
Yes, I had a question. I was curious about like a specific client and just sort of your experience with it. Do you know the relationship, I guess, with EH&S and universities and higher education with facilities and maintenance departments? Because, you know, from my perspective, coming from industry to this, you know, those guys deal a lot with, those people, they deal a lot with lockout, tag out, working at heights and stuff like that. A lot of stuff that I'm well versed in, but they almost seem to be independent. And, you know, my communications with most other institutions, they're often independent and they work unto themselves as well. So I basically just want to ask, like, what's your experience or with schools and their relationships with those departments?
Yeah, you bring up a really good topic of conversation. What you're describing is not necessarily unique. Many organizations have this, I guess you could call it a gap in relationship for a variety of different reasons. I would argue that the EHS program should be proactive as possible in terms of communicating the value of what you bring to the table with facilities planning and engineering, or whatever the group is called on your campus. Things like required safety training and the like. And so you need to have quality training. You need to have quality relationships. When you're going in and you're expecting things like lockout, tag out, and having these different programs in place, that it just needs to be well articulated, communicated, and it needs to be a partnership. So let me tell you a trick of the trade, and I say this jokingly, but it actually serves us very well. One of our more tenured EHS managers in our department, he's actually married to one of the directors in our facilities department. That happened long ago by happenstance, but I tell you, it serves us well because the relationship is strengthened by this. There's no conflict of interest, don't get me wrong, in what's going on there. We keep all that separation of church and state, so to speak. But my goodness, the relationships have been improved just simply based on having somebody that you can reach out to that's knowledgeable, that's reliable, and we try to reciprocate as best as we can. And don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect scenario on our side, and we have lots of room for improvement. We get facilities is one of our biggest critics for what we do as well, I would argue, on our campus. And so the targeted feedback that we've obtained from them, first of all, they said, thanks for asking. We're glad you're asking. We want you to improve in these different ways, and here's how you can serve us better. I think that's been the biggest value for us in performing that exercise, in particular with facilities. So I don't know if that answered your question entirely, but that's been my experience and my recommendation here.
No, yeah, no, that definitely kind of gave me some insight. Like it's a particularly hard nut to crack in our specific field of EHS. Is what I'm picking up. So yeah.
Yeah, they might do their own training. They might have their own internal programs. They might have their own people assigned to oversee things that a traditional EHS program would help. So maybe they see EHS as getting in the way. So you have to you have to plow around those stumps by showing the value of what you bring to the table and how you do that most effectively. And asking them, it doesn't have to be a formal survey. How can we partner on this? How can we serve you best? I think is really important.
Thank you.
We're compelled to conduct a peer review of our EHS program every 3 years under UT system requirements. That's the same for all of the UT system components that are participating today as well. One interesting piece of feedback related to your question was that we've got a great relationship with facilities, I believe. It's been strengthened over the course of time. It's not perfect by any means, but it is a very solid, strong relationship. We're doing well enough to that when we conducted our recent peer review, the feedback we got was, you guys are doing a great job, but here's how we can take it to the next level. And that I thought was very, I was touched, to be honest, to get that type of feedback. Well, here's what we can do even better with our programs, with our communication, our collaboration. And so we're focusing in on those things in terms of efficiencies on our side. When we're doing, one example is construction or renovation reviews. On the front end, we've got a seat at the table. Facilities involves us. They solicit our feedback, but they said, hey, you can do a better job of getting stuff back in a timely manner. And you can do stuff better, get us this information back in terms of your feedback and your critiques of these design reviews by going through one point of contact. We're having to deal with 2 or 3 people for these different programmatic areas, and it's driving us nuts. It's too much time and effort on our side. We need to be more lean and efficient with this process. And so we're designing and building a better process internally based on that feedback. So important stuff. Any other questions or feedback? Well, we've got 5 minutes remaining. I will tell you that this is the first time we've done this 2-part series with the EHS Academy. As we've already advertised, this is the soft science presentations to start. Please take these as you may and make them your own. Think about these things over the course of the next week. Please use that online discussion forum. We will be checking it routinely. We'll be providing feedback in that discussion forum. I would encourage everybody to have a dialogue. That's the beauty and importance of this EHS Academy, is to share. So don't be shy. And if you want to contact us offline, as Dr. Emery mentioned, for any reason, email us, call us. We're happy to have a conversation about anything we've talked about so far. And I look forward to carrying this forward into next week. We have some more good presentations, and part 2 of the presentation, or the EHS Academy, which is down the road, we'll get into the hard sciences here. So thank you guys very much for your attention. I'm going to hang out for another couple minutes in case anybody wants to have a conversation about anything else. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll see you on April 4th.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks everyone. I put that link to the course site in the chat. Y'all can grab that and log in through there. You also should have received an email last Friday with directions on how to log in. So we look forward to seeing you online and virtually again next Monday. Thanks.